I see the Duke in the chat. What's up?
The G.
The Duke.
Yeah, I understand that there's some where the white women at, like duking it, but a lot.
It's the Duke in the flesh. Showing my face now. Let's see how this goes.
I should have solved the integration problems, etc.
For Black people in particular, do you think that we can truly make change as things are right now?
Well, it starts in the home. You know, if the father's not in the home, the boy will find the father in the streets. Yeah, I saw it in my generation and every generation before me and everyone since. It starts in the home.
It was something I read where you talked about your people from Mount Vernon saying that, you know, like they've done like 40 years in the penitentiary together.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, and, you know, incarceration rates in America has been a problem, especially as opposed to minorities. And Roman delves into the issues around the legal system. Do you think we've made any headway in the
I think it's more important to make headway in our own house. By the time the system comes into play, the damage is done. They're not locking up 7-year-olds.
Yeah.
You know, I was in Chicago a couple of 3-4 weeks ago, and we saw these little kids on bikes with masks on the side of their head, like 5 or 6 of them. And the driver said, yeah, they're little yummies. I said, who? He said, little yummies. Look up, Google Lil Yummy. Lil Yummy was an 11-year-old murderer.
Wow.
And you look at his picture, you'll see the headshot of him, and he's like this. And he got murdered at 11 by a 14-year-old.
Wow.
Who's doing life now, and a 16-year-old.
That makes no sense.
You blame the system? Where was his father?
Yeah.
It starts in the house. It starts in the home. And yeah, well, my father got locked up. Well, where was his father?
Marriage. Again, the Thomas Sowell reader. Despite attempts to equate married couples with people who are living together as domestic partners, married couples, genuinely married couples, not domestic partners, are in fact better off by almost any standard you can think of. Close quote.
Income. People who are married have higher incomes. Domestic violence, the rate of domestic violence in marriage is a fraction of what it is among people who are simply living together. The abuse of children in married couples, families, is a fraction of what the abuse of children is among people who are simply living together. So if you put it to an empirical test, it's just very clear that marriage makes a difference. Among blacks, black married couples have had a poverty rate in single digits every year since 1994.
So to the cry, what is to be done? Tom Sowell answers.
It's been done.
Get an education, get married, have kids after you get married. That's sort of the answer, right?
Well, yes, and the things that work for other people tend to work pretty generally.
All right.
So why did he need a black director? Could a white director not have?
It's not color; it's culture.
Explain the difference, because I think we're
Steven
in a space
Spielberg
right
did Schindler's List.
Mm-hmm.
Martin Scorsese did Goodfellas, right? Steven Spielberg could direct Goodfellas. Martin Scorsese probably could have done a good job with Schindler's List, but they're cultural differences.
Are you saying that in a culturally pluralistic society such as America, are you saying that the variable in success or lack of success is the culture of the particular group?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I'm saying it not only for the United States, but in terms of the studies of various other countries around the world, the same thing seems to be true. you not only find the same group having the same characteristics in country after the country. That is, the Germans produced the first pianos in Australia. They created the piano industry in the United States. They built the first pianos in England. They built the first pianos in Russia. You look at the Chinese, what they major in Malaysia in college is what they major in the United States in college.
Namely science and
Science and technology, heavily. And this follows the group around the world. So the notion that the group is a creature of society, that society has shaped the group, just will not.
Trying to remember now, I believe it was in the mid-70s when substandard English began to become viewed as a discipline of its own within linguistic studies and so forth. And for all I know, it was all perfectly legitimate that certain speech patterns would be traced back to various regions in Africa and so forth. And this is a language of its own. It has its own validity. But the argument, your argument would be, I don't really care what its validity is. It's holding people back. It's preventing them from participating in the wider society. Is that right?
Absolutely. And also, none of these things went back to Africa.
Oh, is that so?
No. You can. Yes, they did not go back to Africa. If you look at the peach, for example, using the word axe for ask and stuff like that, all of that goes back to the South, and it goes back to the parts of Britain from which white Southerners came. So if you trace calling hog entrails chitlins, that was in a certain section of Britain, the section from which whites moved into the South, and they were known as rednecks and crackers in Britain in centuries past, before they ever set foot in the South. So the whole thing is as phony as the $3 bill.
In Intellectuals and Race, you cite an observation by the intelligence expert, IQ scientist James Flynn, that just stopped me cold. After the Second World War, you've got large numbers of American troops remaining in Germany. For that matter, there's still several tens of thousands there today. And both black and white American soldiers had children with German women. And Flynn discovered that those children growing up in Germany showed no IQ differences at all. The black kids and the white kids, the same. Professor Flynn concluded that the reason was that the offspring of black soldiers in Germany grew up in a nation with no black subculture, close quote. Which means what? Which means they experienced exactly the same expectations. Is this
No, the expectations are external. The culture in which they grew up was not the culture in which black kids grew up in America today.
So they had...
There's no gangster rap that was pervasively available in Germany.
So here's what I'm getting. There is something about black subculture in America today that holds African Americans themselves back?
Yes, because that very same subculture held whites in the South back as well. That in the time this mental testing in the First World War turned up, among other things, the fact that whites from various 4 or 5 southern states scored lower on the mental test than blacks from 4 or 5 northern states. And so it really was a question of the subculture that was there, which was a handicap to both.
Well, I see the Duke in the chat. What's up?
The G.
The Duke.
Yeah, I understand that there's some where the white women at, like duking it, but a lot.
It's the Duke in the flesh. Showing my face now. Let's see how this goes. I follow the facts first and foremost. Tell that to your mother, man. We don't play around on this panel. Boy, what is going on? What is going on? It's the Duke in the building. Yes, I am showing myself today. This was unscheduled, unplanned, and I felt I needed to have this discussion. In fact, there was a live scheduled for last weekend. Things had to change for this weekend, but I had to bring this conversation up. It was very important. I hope everyone can hear me, if my signal is good. I'm trying to work on that. But overall, I'm doing what I can. Everyone's tuning in. Thank you all for being, on time. What's up, Vincent? What's up, Lady A? Bro from Brom, how you been? I representing. Thank you so much all for tuning in. I'm hoping this signal is good. Please, if you could hear me, just message, just leave it on the chat room. I hope I didn't. So no. Just drop a 1 on the chat room, guys, just to let me know that you can hear me. My signal doesn't do so well during the week before I really go in on topic. Okay, it's you're saying it's kind of choppy. Okay, I can't even see it on here. Okay, so I'll do what I can. I'm gonna try and do off cam, on cam when I can, but as long as you can hear me, that's good. Yeah, my internet is bad where I am. I'm gonna explain where I am, to be honest, for you guys to know in context to the topic today. So if you can hear me now, just type 1 in the chat. If it's still choppy, just let me know. I'm just gonna tune in and start today. So you guys have watched some content already, right? Thank you, Vincent. Who else is listening? That would be good to know. But also, yes, so the videos you guys just watched, there's a compilation of videos I found to bring up for this video today. Black people continue to protect dysfunction and wonder why we don't progress, why we don't level up. People want things to change so quickly, but their mindset doesn't change because they just think that it's sort of environmental reasons why we can't get out of the situation we're in. So I gave you a few videos on Thomas Sowell, a very big, writer, economist. He speaks a lot on this topic. Denzel Washington, world renowned, everyone loves and respects him, actor, father, speaker, he's done so much. And he speaks on culture, how it's not always about color, it's about culture. Like, what is being trumped today? What are we valuing today? And the issue is, what I'm seeing is that we speak on the problems and then we see the problems, but instead of let's change things up, we glorify it, we protect it, we kind of allow things to be the way they are. There's nothing you can do about it to change things. Let me see if I can go on cam again. Hoping everyone can hear me. But whatever happens, I'll just edit and make a short video on this topic. And I wanted to bring up, so you can see in the description below, there's a few things I wanted to speak on. What I made a video previously, it was last week, on how we don't have to work with everyone. Keep Pookies over there. Keep the people who don't want progress to change over there. And let's focus on building what we can in society rather than trying to embrace everyone working together. Like, not everyone wants to work. Even people's Pan-Africanist God, Prince of Pan-Africanism, he says it himself. Some of these brothers just, he says something I wouldn't say, like, don't put them to sleep, but, keep them aside. Like, don't utilize them in any way. Okay, I can see people are tuning in. Why would the anti-social socialite podcast? Thank you so much for tuning in. Hashtag SOSBM in the building. It's too much here. But yeah. Of course, I have a small following. I don't plan on making content to break barriers in the YouTube algorithm. I really make content that I feel like it resonates with what I say and what I think is not really said enough on YouTube or in the YouTube space. People talk, and so yeah, I make content. It helps me practice with media content as well, like frames and all of this. It's fun, so I just do this for fun. But besides the point, the consistency gives me something to do once a week. But this type of topic was tense for me. That's why I was like, I want to make it now before my head explodes. Because what happens is, I make content I know it will be controversial. Some people might disagree with it. The idea of trumping up classism. I want people to understand when I think of classism, I'm not trying to take on everything. Because, of course, capitalism and how it affects the community, how people can be left behind who, were living in circumstances that they couldn't. I'm not trying to say we need to label people at all. What I'm saying is that we need to value certain things. So egalitarianism is the opportunity we give everyone, right? An equal opportunity, equal grounding in order to have a chance in life. And that's what I would trump in anything, right? If you have the same opportunity as your neighbor, that's all is necessary to prove that you live in a society that provides you some type of support, some type of starting line. So I completely support that, versus Pookie glorification. It's not about looking at people who are in the bottom. It's not about the underdog. It's really about accepting that some people don't want to change. Please let me know, guys, if the internet is still acting up. Just let me in the comments. If it's good, then I can carry on. But I wanted to get personal today. That's why I wanted to put a face with the voice. My mindset changed maybe the last few years because of where I live and where I'm accommodated now. People know I'm from the UK, as you can tell from my voice. But I've been living in the Republic of Ireland for a few years. I do visit back and forth. Okay, it's all good. Thanks, Vincent. I do go back home in London, back and forth, but I'm mostly here for another 2 years. Well, 1.5 years. And I would say I've learned a lot about different cultures. I mean, it's weird, even though it's not that far away, but very specific type of culture here, in the Republic of Ireland. Learning about how there's a rift between the Irish and their traveller population. We have that in England too. But what people recognize, especially black people, what we recognize is that the travelers look no different from the white people we see. This is why I want to bring this up, right? They're still European. They might have certain traits, that make them distinctly different from other groups. But especially in the UK and England, the traveller community, the gypsies, look very much like any other white person we see in public. Let's not play around. Let's not pretend like they're immensely different. Okay. But what I notice is that it's the cultural difference, very vast difference. To them, I'll make an edit video to discuss it, but I'll show like sort of a data showing how they live a certain lifestyle that prevents them from benefiting from things that most people will benefit from in the West, especially being a white population. But because they live in caravans, they choose not to mix with other regular folk. They don't value education as much as the other groups. They avoid technology or advancements, or even settle in more urbanized communities. They avoid, and even if they're in urban communities, they still live extremely different to other groups. Why am I pointing this out is that even within the fact that they're Caucasian Europeans, like whoever wants to deny that, you can leave a message, we can discuss it. They are very different in how they act. When it comes to IQ tests, they score low. think about it. How is that possible if they are also white? Shouldn't it be inherent? And then also how people view them, the perspective of the locals, the Irish, they see them as completely different. They don't trust them. They wouldn't hire them. They watch their pockets when they're around them. How familiar does that sound to people? Because they might be way extreme than what we've heard, you know, how people are marginalized, black and white in America or in the UK. But as we can see how people behave towards another culture of people that choose to be distinctly different from everyone else, it forms an idea that they are not one of us, even though they've been in the same ancestral land for hundreds of years. They're not considered one of us. So I just had to bring that up, just to make people think that even when you take out the factor of race and you focus on culture, just like in the Denzel Washington video where he described that, the family dynamic, the fatherless homes, the factor in which, what are they valuing? Are they valuing education? Are they valuing STEM? Are they valuing family? A lot of things that people want to ignore. And what makes my blood boil sometimes is that we don't acknowledge it as a people. And when I speak on people, I don't want to speak on every group of black people in the West. I'm in the West, yes, but not Africa, not certain places in the third world, because I'm telling you, they have more obstacles, more environmental experience that we don't. So I don't count them in this conversation. But I'm counting those who live here, who live in Europe, who live in North America. We have a behavioral pattern that makes us distinctly different from other groups. And we point to it, intellectuals point to it. You know, we listen to Thomas Sowell, but people who completely disagree with him will point to other things like how the system is affecting us rather than how we behave in the system. The last 20 to 30 years, I would say, we have the opportunity to rise out of that oppressive system. But what do we value? And then how specific groups within our population value, you know, progressiveness, or value what keeps the family together and all of this. And what I recognize a lot about these pro-blacks is that instead of focusing on the home, like Denzel Washington will mention, on the family, they want to focus on the grand community. And then when you ask them, okay, you want solutions to the community, what about you? How do you make sure your home represents something to you? Oh, my wife has to be black, my children have to be black. You listen to these pro-blacks, they don't value marriage, they don't value having family relatives around them. A lot of them are ostracized from their own little small communities, but they want to claim the whole world. They want to claim the social media world of black people instead of their own family, their own cousins. They would, exodus themselves from their own flesh and blood, but they want to, relate with you, a complete nobody to them. But besides the point, I'm hoping the internet's working. I hope everyone tuned into the videos. I might replay one more. And if anyone wants to give their input, you don't have to come up. This is just me being a little bit more open. But I gave my input to the Irish experience, living around them, speaking to different people. I'm in a community in Ireland where there's a lot of them. So it's like, they don't look no different from the Irish. I'm thinking, what's the difference between them? It's culture. It's culture. People might say, oh, the genealogy has been converged for hundreds of years. Gypsies may have come from Romania, but they're culturally, different. But when it comes to how they look, and they don't look no different. I'm telling you guys, we can't play around. Let me check on the chat. I'm just confused how we can see a comparison within the, Caucasian community and there are factors that point to why some groups decline and some are doing well. But with us, we think, oh, it's because of this, rather than culture and habits we have in certain groups in Europe, in the US. Like, how do we behave? Let's see the chat. What's up with everyone? Good evening. Sorry, I can't. Is it Susu Bean? Can't really read that, but if it must be right. What's up? How you doing? Anti-social. Okay, it's Juju Bean. Okay, nice to meet you. Same with liberal small hats and ultra orthodox small hats. Okay, I'm not familiar with the terms, but I'm guessing I know what you mean. But I did read Thomas Sowell's book, The Intellectuals, and how they sort of use the minority groups in the West for their own sort of chess move games, and black people fell for it for decades, and we're still doing it now, where we enable dysfunction in our own community and say, well, that's just the environment, there's nothing we can do about it, and No, we can't play that game. So whoever's watched the video I made last week, where I was like, shame dysfunction, shame bad behavior within our community, shame the, thugs who don't care about, society. They want to be anarchists. I'm just here thinking, what's wrong with saying that? But then some people might think that, oh, that's looking down on people. But when I make a difference between who is doing good, even living in poverty, and those who don't, what's wrong with pointing out those who don't? Like, it's not like we have to accept everyone. If someone... What's infuriating is that when we have epidemics, let's go straight home. UK, we have problems with knife crime amongst young black boys. I'm going to get hit personal right now, okay? I know two of my age mates who passed away from knife crime. I grew up in East London, and I kept up with a few of the guys I grew up with. One, grew up with him since I was like 8, and he died 2 years ago from a knife crime. I'm thinking, he's just hit his late 20s. I was thinking, I just did not picture him passing away and being in that environment, but he chose to be in that environment because it's cool, it's okay. This is close to me. Yes, if I shame that behavior, it's because it's close to me. I'm tired, I'm fed up of seeing guys my age and younger in that predicament and losing their life. And we sit around thinking, oh, it's the police. Oh, we just, the society we live in, it's just the rampant poverty. No. I know individuals who are doing well for, like, in terms of they had a good upbringing. There was no reason for them to be involved with that rubbish, that bullshit. But we glorified it. And I'm thinking, what could I have done to help that friend of mine? I distanced myself from him around 17, 18 because I'm like, I was trying to keep up with him when I moved neighborhoods. And thank God, I'm glad like my parents moved to a better neighborhood. But I kept in touch with old friends. But looking at friends like that and knowing that they lost their life, my mind started switching. Like, what could I have done to encourage a friend or an acquaintance that I know was involved in that lifestyle? Do I just sit around and complain about the system? Or could I have said to him, like, bro, what you're doing is messed up. It makes you look rough. It makes you look bad. Why would I sit around and just nod at him like, yeah, it's all right. Do you, bro? He might make it in the music industry. I'm thinking of like all the young boys or the young girls who are lost in that type of environment. What are we doing? Just giving a thumbs up when we could have been helping them? And when I'm talking about helping them, I'm talking about waking them up. Like, if we sit around and forget young people in a community, are living the way they do because no one tells them like, yo, that's ridiculous. You look like an idiot right now. Because I know this is why I exclude the African community as well. Because if I go back home, because I've got a Nigerian background, I know for a fact we do not glorify thuggery or that gang violence, even though there's chronic poverty in parts of Africa. We don't make excuses for criminality. We don't, like we do here. We call them, in Nigeria, we call them area boys, Yahoo boys. We mock those who choose to live in dysfunction, even though there are obviously more factors that may affect them to join, wrong things. But then the majority of those who live in poverty are climbing up. They do the simplest jobs just to make it through in their small families. They trade, do market stuff. The people, the villagers, basically. That's the actual poverty. So when people get involved in criminality, they have no excuse. So there we shame them. We shame them for getting involved in that nonsense. Even though imagine picking up a liberal, an intellectual liberal from the Americas, Canada, America, Europe, and bring them over to Africa. And if a criminal, commits a crime, a thug commits a crime, they will just sit there and say, oh yeah, of course he lives in Africa. It's his situation that he had to lead to that. All these policies are preventing him from succeeding, and so maybe we should give him a lesser sentence. Imagine there's a system in certain African countries that punish criminals, and you will bring a liberal telling them like, oh well, it's the situation he's in. Why am I using that example? Because Africa is always an example a lot of African parents use. Even any other, black parent would use, like, kids are starving in Africa, right? And what's funny is we can't use that excuse here as much as they can, because they should be using it more. Like, we live in this situation, we're committing crime. Well, there was nothing we could do. No. People are punished in public for being violent and dysfunctional. Because they already live. Oh, I hope everyone's tuning in. I'm sorry about that, guys. My internet does act up around this time. I'm so sorry. But I hope people got that perspective. Let me see what everyone else is saying. Lady A, the anti-social, says it's okay to be elitist black people. It's okay to be bougie. Honestly, like, okay. Because for a while, I've always seen that being promoted. Like, we need to see more wealthy black people, black excellence. That was a thing. What happened to that? I get that we shouldn't look down on people who are less. I'm trying to make it to the top, right? So we push for more. We push for more representation in higher positions. But we can't get that if we have a certain mentality that promotes dysfunction, promotes living in a squatter, because that's what being black is. Are we gypsies? Honestly, are we gypsies? Because we are sounding like gypsies when we encourage that. Hope people can. Oh, viewership has dropped down. Uh-oh. What are people saying? Preach, I'm telling you. I'm telling you. I love your recent videos you've been putting out. Oh, yes. In fact, I've already bookmarked some of Antisocial Socialites videos, so we are definitely going to be watching the rest. Vincent, please let me know if you can see me again. I hope I'm still going on. But I'm going to place the content. Some more interesting perspective with the Africa. Yeah, very, very huge. I will continue to use it because the confusing part is that we, of course, live in the we have first world problems, and so when we point to certain things that we face, quadruple that struggle and think about how Africans think about racism. Miss Hannah Bryant, wow, this guy's thank you. Thanks for tuning in. Like and subscribe. Thank you for your compliment. To meet you. Thanks for tuning in. So those are like the compilation of videos. I might play one or two again for everyone, but I need people to understand that there's a rift in perspective, especially in this space when it comes to among black people who look for solutions and so on. Thanks. Yep. Hannah, yes, black people make fun of other black people and say they are arrogant, snooty. Who are the ones who even make these rules and rules and regulations on how to behave and calling people arrogant for, I don't know, promoting excellence? Like, since when was that wrong? Like, I'm very disappointed with what I've heard. Even educated blacks get made fun of. Educated, but in fact, I would also say, Hannah, that there are some educated blacks who would also encourage that and promote that behavior. There are a lot of intellectuals. I think there is even a rift between intellectuals, academics who make excuses for dysfunction and attack those who are maybe considered more conservative thinkers, who always trump accountability as a necessity, a topic to always bring up, so people complain that, oh, these people are disingenuous, they are disconnected from the community. And I'm thinking, is the community completely about poverty? Like, there are people out there in the middle class who are doing well for themselves, who have pushed up. If they want to, bring people from the bottom with them, mentoring and so on, but we don't use them as examples. We use those out of the gutter, right? But still keep a gutter mentality and culture. So I use rappers as an example, like in the previous video. Musicians shouldn't be the epicenter of a progressive culture. It's an aspect of it that promotes creativity, but it should not be somewhere where we have to find out what a rapper can do to give back to the community. Don't expect entertainers to give back to the community. It's unfortunate that we have to rely on entertainers to change things in society. They can encourage, promote, and circulate propaganda to maybe important cause, but they shouldn't be leaders. That's too much effort and work for a group of people. Like, Shakespeare wasn't trying to change the world and lead a revolution. He was just a creative that throughout time has left a mark in society in the Anglo-speaking world. But he was not a leader. He was just profound in many ways. People obviously didn't go to Shakespeare for a revolution against the monarch. So it's like, why are we relying on the creatives to be an example? Why? What we saying here? Like in the country. Thank you so much, Hub Jargon. I'm a small content creator. I'm not trying to make it big, but this is fun for me. I have another platform called Not Your Average Joe Podcast with two of my friends, and this is just my separate content I'll carry on doing. Hoop Jargon says a lot of us function in dysfunction. Indeed, like a functional drug addict. Like, you live within that experience, but maybe you crawled out of it, but you still live within that experience. Like the Irish gypsies, as an example. I'm gonna make a edited video of this stream to let people understand that I live in an environment where I see predominantly like 95% white folk, right? And there are two different groups, distinctly different in culture. But if you look at them, you won't notice a difference. People in the UK might know if you've been around travelers, but in Ireland, there's a lot more. And the way I listen to my Irish friends talk about them, it's like there's a parallel with what I've heard racially, like in America, and how people are viewed. And it's like, what made them so different? It's culture. As Denzel Washington said in the video, I'm going to play one more time because that was preaching to me, right? Culture is a huge benefactor to how groups of people maneuver around the world. You hit the nail on the head. You're only black if you have a struggle. If you don't vote for me, then you're not black. If you don't vote for the Democrats who've been taking you, the liberals who've been fighting for you for how apparently benign neglect, then you ain't black. If you're not from the streets, then you don't sound black. You don't think like us. You don't dress like us. You know, I was around it. I was disciplined to not get involved in it, so I could notice and resonate with people who live in that area of, like, you know, inner city London. But the struggle wasn't something I have to hold on to. You know, I am not going back to the estates to feel more black. It's ridiculous how we navigate and centralize blackness with poverty. It's sad, but people don't realize what. But when you put in words like that, clearly there's a problem. I hear a lot of, you know, speakers, you know, use this a lot. Is that why successful Nigerians are hated? In the West, probably, because we're not meant to be the model minority. Like, a lot of the time, East Asians were the model minority, and now people don't want the idea that Africans are in America minority now, and there's a threat level for some reason, when there should be like, oh, we should be more like, you know, bring the immigrant drive has always been the same. Immigrants of any culture tend to be the most innovative versus the population they're from. It's just because the fact that they moved to a different country, their mindset is the way it is. Just like the Windrush generation in the UK, the time they came was they were workers, but the generations that came after obviously declined in socioeconomic. And then there's also the working class population versus the Caribbeans who moved to America in the 80s and 90s, a very different mindset. The culture can also be segmented based on class too. I made a point in the description below how the class system, there are pros and cons to it. We acknowledge that capitalism can be terrible for community, that the 10% can have 90% of the resources, which is unfair. But when I speak on the class system, I think I'm speaking more on the culture. Think of it about a marriage or wedding, right? A wealthy family from a specific culture, like let's say a Indian culture, a family with a salary household of maybe 200,000 a year, they can make the most extravagant Indian custom marriage ceremony. Everything's all glammed up, but you can see this is an Indian culture. It's culturally exquisite. They use all the cuisines, is spread out, is the best representation of the culture. And then you have another Indian culture from a lower socioeconomic, right? Going through the caste system in India, which is a dark history, right? Would also have that Indian culture, but because they have maybe a household income of maybe 25,000 a year, they have a smaller scale, but they also express the culture in a particular way, almost closely look like appearing like the more extravagant marriage. That ceremony represents something, but no one's gonna say that, oh, the poorer family, Indian family with a marriage ceremony of a lower budget is the true Indian culture represented. Can people see where I'm going with this? Is that within the class system, that's the sort of expression of a culture in a particular part of the world. But for some reason in the West, the poorer you are, the lower socioeconomic income you are, the more of a black person you are. What? And it's not just among the dysfunctional folk, it's among the intellectuals too that say this. That you're not black enough if you didn't, have a certain barbecue a certain way, if you didn't, struggle the same way I did. Like, that's the problem, is that's what your culture is gravitating towards. And the parallels to the gypsy community in Europe, that's exactly what you are in the West. You're creating a traveler gypsy culture within the West as black people. In the UK, in America, in Canada, you want to embrace dysfunction. You want to behave a different way because that's too Western occasion. That's too Eurocentric. Too much education. That's just white man's books. What the fuck are we doing? Check in the chat. I'm heated right now, guys. I'm heated because I just connect the dots. Like, there's something wrong with how people think. Someone wrote liberals. Honestly, hope my connection is going well. I'll spend another 30 minutes and then actually less than that, and then we can have an open panel if anyone wants to tune in. Just click the link in the next 10 minutes and let me know if you have your an input to this. And I'm going to address something else. I've been on, if anyone has heard of Clubhouse, I'm going to discuss that one second. Juju Bean says you're not allowed in the hood if you don't think like them. Yep. I don't know who exactly why we even go to the hood. Who wants to go to the hood? Why should we embrace hood when we should be bringing people out of it? The hood in certain cultures in like Europe, for example, is where the most recent migrants go to start off. You're not meant to go back there. You're meant to start off there. If you're impoverished and then leave, then someone else will take that place. I'm going to even speak on it on Brixton. Anyone who's from London, certain areas where black people used to live, we speak on gentrification, and I'm going to speak on that some more. Facts, joke season. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. Big audience today. I haven't done the live in a while, so it's good to see this. I feel black enough when I look at my skin. That's my reassurance. Exactly. What more do you need? What more do you want from me? Oh man. Yes, indeed. So yeah, I'm gonna speak on Clubhouse. I've been on it for a little bit. Okay. It's been like 3 weeks. I've been going into certain rooms. I'm thinking, is this how black Clubhouse is? And then I see the contrast with them, what I call mainstream Clubhouse. White Clubhouse, other culture like Asian Clubhouse, like they speak in their own language. When I look at Black American, Black British Clubhouse, I'm just thinking, is this what we speak about? Like, who knows? We'll carry on. I have you on Clubhouse more than YouTube nowadays. You know what? That's how it was for the last 3 weeks. But I just wanted to figure things out. But now I think, man, there's a lot of dysfunction in the community. Only reason I'm going to the hood is for some soul food. Okay, I'm guessing you're from America. We'll address that real quick. Clubhouse. So yeah. So I'm guessing jog season. The hood to you might be like the South, like the country, where people's grandmothers used to live or something like that. But of course, I'm going to speak on this one more as well, because it in parallels to the UK and how we have different parts of England where we lived, or I would say mostly London. So addressing Clubhouse, I wasn't on it for the last 3 weeks trying to figure out how the community talks. And I am astonished by how behind we are on moving. People are still fighting about relationships in the community. People are still fighting over identity. If you're mixed race, should you call yourself black? Colorism, featureism. I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? What is this? Is this our major problems? People are trying to save the planet. The Green Deal, the space race, all of this stuff, crypto, and I see all these different rooms. Some might be interested to some, but like all issues are not correct because I spoke to some of my non-black friends who've actually come across those rooms, and they're like, oh, they might step in it once or twice, but they don't get what's going on. Like, is this what people argue about? I don't see in any other community. Thing is, I'll see maybe a Nigerian room or a Somali room or just like certain rooms from the continent or even from the islands, and they don't really talk like how us Westerners do. They talk on other stuff like politics and tribal stuff, like stuff everyone else talks about. But I'm talking about the black Western community. Like, we got issues on the simplest stuff. So we're speaking on the hood, right? Okay, so in the hood, like let's say in London, I won't even call them hoods anymore, but there were certain communities in London where black people accumulated, some type of cultural infusion. Brixton, Peckham, and some other parts as well, like Hackney, Dalston. There are a lot of black people and still are. But for example, Brixton is considered more gentrified. But when you look into the data, a lot of black people voluntarily left for a better neighborhood for their kids. And then there was some who fought to stay, but rent went high. It's just a typical gentrification. But I know, for example, my parents left. We sold the flat we lived in. It was an apartment we lived in for big bucks. Okay, the policies in the UK benefited some people and it benefited my family. For example, we sold the house that we lived in, that we were able to own, and then bought a nicer place further away from the capital, still in London, just further away and in a peaceful neighborhood. Like, we benefited from gentrification. Okay, and so looking back, when I go back to the hood I used to live in, Hackney, I'm thinking I don't fit in. I left when I was about 14. Okay, and I was comfortable in that area. But when I left, I moved into a nicer area where it was strange to me at first. I look back and I'm saying, I'm never going back, because what's there for? Like, and the way we see the hood here is certainly different in the UK. I won't even call it hood. I'll call it estates, because there's a quick turnover in those communities in the UK, where you're not expected to see the same family or group of people there for 10 years later, unless they chose to stay. But the more you end up staying in that town or that borough of London, the more likely you are to end up in dysfunction. So I mentioned earlier on that I had 2 friends that got stabbed. So 2 people I knew well enough from a young age that were stabbed to death. And I'm thinking, if they lived in the neighborhood I moved to, that would have never happened. And whoever has lost a life of someone they knew, you always wonder, what could you have done to kind of avoid that situation, especially when it was avoidable. He was hanging out, the closest one he was hanging out with the wrong crowd and throughout his life, and lost his life at the age of 26. And I'm thinking, what if I was like cold with him? Like, bro, why are you acting so ridiculous, bro? Like, why can't you push yourself, instead of me encouraging him to be himself, being yourself when you could be better? So I'm here on like social media, or you might hear me if you see me on Clubhouse, talk against the gangster, the thug, the Pookie. I taunt the Pookie, because to me it's like, I could have been one, and I'm glad I'm not, but I shame that culture, that behavior, because I don't need more black boys to look up to people like Ghost, the character in Power, or like 50 Cent, or just because they made it, oh, you know, they hustle mentality. You can trust the hood nigger, you can trust them better than the educated lame. I'm just like, yo, this is the shit we talk about. We enable that dysfunction. We don't tell our brothers to avoid that stuff, because we say that, oh yeah, you know, Jay-Z made it. We use celebrities as an example. What a shame. What a shame. So I sat here, I made that video last week to say that we need to break apart in terms of isolating and ostracizing people who behave a certain way, leading to criminality, dysfunction. That would wake them up. If we don't surround them, if we don't, and to let them know that the way the Oyibo means white, by the way, like, you know, I'm African, you're Nigerian, we say Oyibo, like it's code word for white. The Oyibos, the way they act, right, those who are dysfunctional, you know, white trash, they tell them you're white trash. They mock the poverty strickenness. They mock the gypsies, like, no, I don't want to associate with them. So if you are someone in that predicament, you don't want to be seen that way. Sometimes a little bit of like pushback, shaming would push someone away from that lifestyle. But if we promote it, like, yes, Bobby Schmurda, I'm not Bobby Schmurda. The fact that people even in an educated position, an affluent position, are saying free Bobby Schmurda shows there's something wrong with us. Because how many bodies he's dropped. We praise our murderers. I repeat, we praise our murderers, and we just put our hand up like this is the system. Well, there's nothing we can do about it. We burn our cities down. There's nothing we can do about it. The popo don't know that. I've had enough. I said I had enough. So I've been making content to shame that. Yeah, Bobby. Yes, the your old being praised for behaving that way he did. So I want that. I want that. I want how everyone views him that way. I want the same thing he wants. I'm gonna die trying. So I shame it. I shame it. But I'm being looked down on for shaming it. I'm being shamed for shaming dysfunction. I'm not backing down. I'm not. Because I've seen too many people in that situation. I've lost 2 friends. Around and defend that BS. I don't want to be a part of that. I grew up in that environment. And so when I hear someone say, oh, you should know better because you came from that environment, this because I know better that I'm speaking louder. In fact, I would definitely look down on people who maybe did not come from that environment. I won't look down and I'll be like, oh, watch what you say because you never know. But someone like me should be more qualified to speak on it. And you think I should, defend that behavior? You're not having that with me. I'm the Duke, man. You know, I'm the Duke. Like, that's the name I chose. You know, I want to behave like royalty. I want to put myself in a position where I value myself. Lives being lost for ridiculousness, and you want me to sit around and okay that because no, the boys in the hood, they have to hustle too. I don't need that hustling. I'm an ex-Pookie. I won't say I'm an ex-Pookie, but I was around that environment. And season, thank you for even saying that. because I'm representing those who came from that behavior and changed up. I've spoken to friends who've said they've mentored a younger guy who behaves that way and now wants to do better for themselves. They're educated, they have a skill. We want to be good examples, but instead we're enabling that behavior. We're not even calling people out of it, waking them up. They didn't have a father in their home. Fatherless homes, and there are men like us who allow them to lead to a darker path because we don't say anything, because we don't want to be down for that. We don't want to, we want to defend them and free them from prison. Excuse me? Look, I listen to drill, I listen to rap music, yes, but I prayed that, man, can this life, this type of music evolve into something where I can enjoy it without attaching it to criminality? It's rough, man. If you want to tune in, I'm hoping the link is still up. You can just give an input. That would be great, bro. And it says not cold anymore. I have great points to make. Yes, please, definitely want to hear you. I think I've heard you once, bro. Bobby Schmurder. It's funny. Look, everyone would go crazy for the music he made then. But try and listen to his music now. I'm telling you, it's shockingly bad. But people will still promote him like, hey, he just came out, he just needs to warm up. But for everyone, Bobby Schmurder, there's 24 young black men in prison trying to emulate that behavior, and we don't know them like we know him. What can we do? Thank you, Jug Season, bro. I want to speak more on it. Just a small voice here, but I don't hear enough of this voice. Like I follow certain people who may say certain things like anti-social, social. Like she's been speaking up on this. It's very important we raise this point. Thank you again. I'm in class. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Anna. And if anyone does disagree, I don't mind. If you want to give your input too, it will be great too. Thank you so much, bro. I've Jug Season, bro. I've seen it all. The Pookie lifestyle has to offer. All it did was get my best friend killed in front of me, and a couple charges just bared them all. Thank God, bro. I can relate, man. I've lost 2 friends to that lifestyle, man. And we sit around supporting. So it hits me. It hits me differently. You see, it hits me differently. It's that life is not worth it. It's just the fact that the average black person doesn't look down on that behavior because we see it as, oh well, it's the system they're in. I get it, but we have to call it out. Please, anytime, any new listeners, subscribers to this show, just watch the most recent video I posted. It's only 10 minutes. When we're done, find time to watch it. It may have offended some people, right? I get it. We can have our disagreements, but this is from my personal experience. I'm not sitting around like I grew up in a certain area of the world. I'm not looking down on people I've never met. These are people I knew. And because I was taken out of that environment, I did not want to go back. Now, at the same time, I'm calling out to people from that environment like, bro, there's better for you. I would have loved to taunt my friends, taunt them, Taunt or Tua. You guys know what I'm saying. And like mock them, like, bro, what you're doing, you look like an idiot. I think we are. Probably he could have changed the way he behaved. You know how people say how, the gospel, preaching to the gospel, you might have to wake some people that you're going to hell. Repent for your sins. Well, there's a parallel to that. You see, young boys, and then those my age will live in that situation. But no one tells them that, nah, you need to change. No one says it. We just nod our heads like that's another brother there. Like there's nothing else we could do about it. They just live in that environment. We don't speak on it. We go on social media, we praise that behavior. We do. Let's not pretend like we do. I'm not speaking nonsense. I hear it everywhere. I was on Clubhouse about 2 weeks ago. I think Vincent will know I'm listed as the Duke on Clubhouse as well. And I mentioned how we need to stay away from Pookie. We need to stay away from that. The gangsters. And then people are like, well, what are you talking about? Like, you know, a few Americans were on there were like, what you trying to say? Because you can tell a lot of us have friends in that lifestyle. So we make a habit of defending them. Like, they're just hustling, man. They're just doing what they have to do to care for their, family. No. We make excuses too much, amigo. We make too many excuses for the people that shouldn't be in the position they're in. And when they're arrested, we blame the police. We blame the system. And when someone speaks on it, they're just haters. They're just haters. I'm speaking on it now. I'll be so adamant on it as well. I was just telling a couple of friends about accountability, and they can't blame everything wrong with them on their upbringing. They can't. I'm telling you. Okay, I may be lucky. I was with the right, family members, had the right type of mentors. But am I meant to sit around and say, I'm just lucky? My friend, it wasn't. So whatever he does. No, I can be a part of that contribution to them too. You are living a better life because of your circumstances, fine. But the people around you, you defend that dysfunction by saying they just didn't have what you had. You're selfish for saying that. You're the selfish one. Not me for mocking that behavior. You close your eyes to that. Okay. Vincent says, can you imagine getting shamed for wanting better and to live an upper middle class lifestyle? Those words there are trigger words for people in the community. Upper middle class, what are you trying to be? Trying to be different? Getting clowned for trying to not be the stereotype. No wonder some blacks avoid the community altogether, because we all, people don't want to be shamed. We got bro from Brum in the building. I'm gonna add you in a minute, bro. One sec. The older ones are stuck in 1965 and still talking new order and finding everything under the sun not to progress. The Al Sharptons, I know about him. The Jesse Jacksons, they monopolize dysfunction. They love it. That's how they keep their salary up. Juju facts. I don't waste time on old dogs that can't learn new tricks. Indeed. I just left my first job on my way to the second. That's what real hustle is. Respect. Juju says they blame the Klan. They blame the cops from 1946. They blame Malcolm X. They blame the whites. They blame the government. Hey, man. Mr. White Matters, what you saying? And the chat, what's up, bro? Oh, I just lost bro from Brum. Bro, if you want to try and come back on again, that's cool. But this conversation was needed. I needed to lay this out off my chest, because... And for those who just tuned in now, just like watch the pre-recorded, or I'm going to make a short edit on this too. It's time to stop shaming those who shame dysfunction, man. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. Because I got personal. I've lost 2 friends to that lifestyle. And I always wonder, what could I have done to help? What could I have done to change their trajectory? I said nothing. Because I was like, they're cool. They're cool guys, yeah. They hang out with the wrong crowd, but they're cool. I grew up with them. I grew up in that area. But I kept my mouth shut. Because it was okay. That's just what we do, innit? We keep quiet. When we could have been like, stop. Stop doing what you're doing. You look like an idiot. What's wrong with saying that? It's not shaming. It's not looking down on them. It's waking them up. So I posted a few videos from Reno to, we got Denzel Washington, we got Thomas Sowell. They speak on this. Like, they look down on that behavior. Where's the father in the house? Oh, he's incarcerated. Where was his father? We sit around. We just do this. It's the system. No, it's not. It's not enough. It's not enough. We can't make excuses anymore. individuals can make decisions to better themselves, because there are people who live in complete poverty that are doing 10 times more. Let's not enable dysfunction. Let's not. And we make it sound as if, oh, well, you're being down for the underdog. That's not the underdog. Don't play games. The real underdogs are those who have been grinding, civilized civilians, right? They don't get involved in crime. Those are the real underdogs. Bro from Bron, bro, how you been, man? Can you hear me?
Yeah, my phone's a bit lagging. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you wide and clear, bro. This is the first time you've called up. Yeah, I can hear you. I might be lagging, but you're good.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. This is a great topic. Yeah, the first time I'm coming onto your live. It's really good, man.
Thanks for tuning in.
On here, and it's good that you're making these points, man. Somebody needs to make them. Yeah. So let me just dive right in. Okay. From my perspective, what we need to do is that human beings follow incentive, right? So we need to incentivize certain things and de-incentivize other things. In every other community, they incentivize certain behavior and they de-incentivize it. So although there will always be a few bad apples that go ahead and do dumb shit. Oh, sorry.
That's fine. That's fine.
There'll always be bad apples that go ahead and do silly things, but the vast majority of people are clearly in the culture dissuaded from pursuing certain paths. But with black community, it's very simple. Especially for the youth, they see it in equal proportion. Go ahead down the right path and get a STEM degree and get a good job, or go ahead and be a Pookie and Ray. They see it in the same light. Oh, so it's almost like, oh, I didn't do good in school, so let me just go ahead and cause havoc in the community.
Yeah.
So until we actively start shaming, until we actively start saying no, we need to stigmatize. We need to, we need to bring back some of that ruthlessness that we have. We need to direct it at them and say, for far too long we've been too quiet. For far too long we've been complacent. This time it's over. You can go do what you want to do, but we will persuade every other young person in the community. You are the local idiot. So that's what we need to do. Because right now it's an equal proportion. Oh, I didn't do good in school. Instead of kid thinking, okay, let me go into trade, let me try again in school. Nah, they go ahead and start causing havoc. And it starts off with the music, it starts off with the parenting. We need to change that. So that's my first point. We need to raise like the almost the coolness of doing well in school and things like that. But at the same time, because at the exact same time, we need to also stigmatize, and we need to kick out the bad behavior, the bad culture. And unless we do that, we'll always be stuck in this situation. Always. Yeah.
Our image will always be attached to that. That makes perfect sense. I mean, I know we're both from like an African background. We know culturally, if we go back home, if you're involved in criminality, you're looked down on. Like you're part of the problem in our society. But for some reason, in the Western world, we think that behavior gives you a trump card. Like I remember hearing one woman say she's like a celebrity, like a woman on TV, a black woman. She was dating a man and she went on a date with him. She said, oh, he's a bit too nice. He should have at least one criminal record that will give him an edge. I was just like, Jesus Christ. And this is an educated woman with degrees. For her to say that that's what her type of man should be. I'm even highlighting that to show that even in relationships, we have preferences for someone with edge. Edge meaning a little bit of trouble in society. People will say, oh, that's the bad boy mentality, bad boy you want. No, but in other society, they don't think of, when they think of bad boy, they don't think of crime. They think more of someone who does what they want. He's a bit, chatty,
Exactly.
who would say what's on his mind,
Yeah.
not someone who actually commits
Yeah.
crime, but for some reason in the hood, in the community, they want you to actively be involved in some type of violent crime. That's what I've noticed.
And
yeah, bro, thanks for your input. You got anything else?
No, it's just that the last point I want to make is that we are genuinely good people because whether it's the Jamaicans, whether it's us Africans, when we came here, we were pure, as in we were good-hearted, but it's like the accumulative effect of bad behavior, So it's a negative compounding effect. But the earlier we intervene, the earlier we stop it and call it out, the better we'll be later on. You know what I mean? So, but we are now getting this competition started. We're starting to make the change. You know what I mean? So it's fantastic. Keep it up, man.
Yeah. Thanks, bro. Thanks a lot for your input and tuning in.
Yeah.
You got anything else to say, or I can drop you on?
Just that until next time.
Yeah. Cheers, bro. Cheers. Let's
bro.
see
Cheers.
if anyone else wants to tune in. Yes, bro, from Brom. Been in the chat for a minute, but just to hear you speak on it, that's good, man. That's good. I'm getting to people. But I want to say this, right? To what he was saying. We are not saying that certain people who are in the predicament they're in, like, there is guilt in even speaking on it. Like, it'll be shameful to look down on people. I get the feeling. Like, there's nothing we could do to change their situation, so why even shame them? But the thing is, from a young age, like, teenagers, there's an opportunity they can take. I've heard a friend who lives in the neighborhood. He didn't do so well in his life, right? He got involved in petty crime, and he told me, like, bro, I see how you are. You're doing well for yourself. I wish I was like you. I'm like, bro, you can still be that. You can still be that. And it was like, I wish someone could push me, like when we were younger, I wish someone could just like call out and speak. When he told me that, this was like 1.5 years ago, that made me think, like, really, if there was someone there to intervene, not to cradle him, you're making us look bad. This is a bad image for you. That snap into reality was what was needed. I'm telling you, these kids are stuck in a box where no one's is telling them anything. If they're fatherless home, they have less discipline, they have less voices telling them what's right from wrong. And we sit around on social media saying, oh, well, there was nothing more for them to do. Like, no, I don't want to go around circles. I want to see what people are saying. There is a reason why a lot of black men like me altogether don't even bother associating with the so-called community for obvious reasons. Thanks, bro, from Brom, for speaking. Do you think rap music and the American gangster lifestyle had an influence on comment? Yeah, in the UK, I would say that impact from our own choice. It wasn't as if it was forced on us. Like, we chose that. When it comes to rap music, hip hop, it's fine. Like, I don't see it no different as what, the African American culture has brought, like jazz and blues and R&B. That's still other music genres. Rap music is no different in my eyes. Like, you can get great content from hip hop. Like, I think of Kendrick Lamar. There are very good artists out there that have nothing to do with that gang crime nonsense, but they enable it too by promoting it in their lyrics. Oh, I came from that environment. But at the same time, gangster lifestyle, there's gangster lifestyle in every community. Even in the society I live in now, it's there. But I'm even talking among those who are the average Joe, the blue collar workers, the working class, the average person who isn't involved in crime. We don't look down on that lifestyle. That's our problem. Young Dolph, the one that passed away last week, they say how much he did for the community. That's great. He had the mixed bag, but at the same time, they wouldn't have targeted him if he didn't have a history with that type of life. I'm not saying, that's what he deserved. He did not deserve it. But I'm saying at the same time, there were issues that could have been moved. Rappers who make it and make money should leave the community they came from. It has nothing to do with coming back to the hood and helping the community. You're living in that community. What's his name? Nipsey Hussle. Same thing. R.I.P. to him. Did some and contributed to the community. But what was he doing? He was still living that lifestyle. Am I speaking out of line when I say that? He was exposed. He had certain people around him. And he was doing good for the community, right? But it's about the lifestyle you still live. It's the culture you still embrace. Good to speak to you, bro. Yeah, you too, man. No, it's fine. You're warming up. We'll come again, bro. You'll come again. You'll get used to that. But thanks a lot, man. I've been doing what I could. I was making food and jumped straight to the chat. Yes, you can get your food now. Juju Bean says, and it's sad because a lot of these artists, especially these days, went to private schools and came from middle class. It's ridiculous. If you can give me examples of them, because I know a few. I'll even tell you guys a story, like it's personal to me. This is why I speak on it. It's not coming out of my ass. This is personal stuff in my life that I've seen. Bro from Brom, you did good. Yes, bro. Yes, he did. Yes, you did good, bro. Jog season, I thought so, Vincent. My subscribers always say the UK has always been like that. Jog season, I'm going to check out your channel too, bro. But if anyone's in disagreement, please just tune in as well. I want to have you chime in. Lady A, I can see you in the panel. I'll put you on in a minute. Some of it, yes, but a large part has been due to the Caribbean Yardie culture, lifestyle. We can talk on it. That's better. Okay. This is a big topic close to my heart, you know. So I really want to have people chime in too. Lady A, thanks for tuning in. Antisocial socialite. How are you doing
What's
tonight?
good, man? How you doing?
Doing so well. You can see me in the flesh. I just felt that I just needed to come out and speak on it, you know.
That's good.
Real, you know. Mm-hmm. So
Yeah, you look very much
on this topic?
like I expected. Yeah, sorry, I'm out and about. I'm just about to go inside, but I wanted to jump on before you.
Right.
I said I had to come on. Yeah, it's funny because I had a kind of a conversation, not really a conversation. I saw a tweet actually that was kind of similar to this, talking about how the person was trying to insinuate that if poverty makes people commit crime, then why is it that black women allegedly are poorer than black men, but they don't commit as much crime? And it's like, poverty is not a cause. It's definitely a correlation. And it's a little bit of nature. It's a little bit of nurture, you know. Culture is how you think about things, what is socially acceptable, you know, what makes you accepted or rejected by the group and things like that. And it's definitely a cultural mentality that leads to destructive behavior. Because, you know, for example, I feel like in a lot of instances, black people shame one another for doing what is perceived as white, you know, speaking well, valuing education, not being in the streets and things like that. And so it becomes like a cycle where in order to be accepted by other people, by other black people, you have to engage in like self-destructive behavior.
It's indeed. I think it's like a pattern that we all follow for some reason. In the West in particular, this is what we want to embrace. Almost like a covert agenda. We've all claimed, oh yeah, we keep quiet on dysfunction. We don't judge our neighbor who does that. We don't snitch. We don't. Yeah, sure, you can keep quiet on it. But when people, you know, like us speak on it, why we look down on like, oh, why are you saying these things? Like you're off cold. You're off cold when you say stuff like this. You're a sellout. You're a coon. Like no. I'm trying to speak out on it to raise awareness. Is there something wrong with that? I don't know what else to say. But you get what I
You
mean.
know, I think it's partly to do with a culture of being addicted to struggling. Like I say this, and you know, it might sound a bit harsh. I feel like for people who are in the West, for Black people who are in the West, the authentic Black experience is synonymous with struggling, and so we kind of we cultivate a culture that is, perpetuates struggle. So, if you could, all right, like you said about shame, I tell people it's okay to be elitist, it's okay to be bougie, it's okay to be classist, because unfortunately you can't take everybody with you, and not everybody wants to go. And Black people have a real hard time understanding that everybody else operates on a class system and merit system and things like that. And it's okay to want to work with, like, people of other races, for example, if it means getting resources that you can then bring back to your own community. But there's a lack of a long-term thought process here. That's why a lot of people see, they kind of, I don't even know what the word is. I think it's partly like magical thinking as well. A lot of Black people love symbology more than actual work. And so they'll like a Umar Johnson who can give you, a very rousing speech. But really and truly, what exactly is he accomplishing with that speech? It's been 10 years since he promised the school, and we see no sign of the school. Some people say he built it, but I don't know. But Black people prefer symbology rather than actual tangible things, because the tangible things require sacrifice, they require work, and these are some of the things we're unfortunately just not prepared to do.
Yeah, the long-term labor of really bringing people up to a better position. Yes, it takes a lot more work, and I guess when we continue to blame everything else around us, it's an easier way to cope. That's the term a lot of people use, cope with our current situation. So I definitely get what you mean by that. We always use Umar Johnson as an example, but he's literally the one who tries to represent that. So it's like, there's nothing else we could do. But he's a perfect example. So people should continue to watch how he moves. And I think in the long run, people will be discouraged. Like, if that's a representation of pro-Blackness, then I'm sorry, I can't run with it. And whoever is trying to cope with Umar Johnson will eventually realize later on that this was a waste of time. It'll continue to be a waste of time. Oh, man. Well, yes, thank you so much for your input, Lady A. Do you have anything else to chime in on?
Yeah, I just feel like, the people who we call the pro-Blacks or the Hoteps, sometimes they are doing a bit more harm than good with that mentality. I'm not saying that we don't want to talk about ancient Kemet or metaphysics and things like that. Some people have coined the phrase melanin magic. But, do I think melanin is great? Yeah, I do. I can believe that it has a lot of great properties. But can we take melanin to the bank? We can't. And so we have to put things in their proper place. There's a time for spirituality. There's a time for religion. There's a time for, putting our shoulder to the wheel and doing some actual physical work. And a lot of the times I feel like Black people try to merge everything together and try to use like spiritual solutions to physical problems and vice versa. Instead of just saying, for example, you talked about 2-parent homes. I know this is a real popular topic, Cynthia G talking about, not having any more male children. And she's like, well, what else is the answer? It's like, why don't you just get married first? It's like, no, we've got to find some super complicated answer to a very simple problem. And then we oversimplify very complex problems, because institutional racism does exist. I do believe that, children can be discriminated against based on color in certain places. In other places, they are more fair. Okay. I do believe that certain environments, they don't want to invest. Like if you have schools in a low dem area, that a lot of these children are coming from poverty. They probably don't have parents who are highly educated and supportive with their education. The area itself is problematic. when these children come to school, maybe some of them are hungry. They haven't even had a solid meal that day. And so if you're not investing in those schools to kind of meet that shortfall that they're not getting at home, then obviously that's going to further the way they fall behind. So there is systemic racism that stops enrichment and investment in the areas where we actually need it, which is one of the reasons why I have an issue with critical race theory. When I hear that, you know, people are going to white children and trying to make them feel guilty for being white, I'm like, okay, even if they feel guilty for slavery, what does that have to do with our education system or discrimination in the workplace or something? It's completely useless. It's like a whole red herring. And so I do believe institutional racism is a problem, but we do need to focus on what we can control. And so a lot of the times people try to mesh spiritual things and, you know, make very convoluted arguments for something that should be very simple and obvious. So, and it kind of goes back to the whole, if we keep talking about the problem, we never actually get into the vein of trying to make changes to solve the problem, you know. So I feel like a lot of Black people, they just don't want to do stuff. And so they find ways to keep the conversation going so we never actually have to take action.
Absolutely. You nailed it completely. I would say this is with me, right? Everything you've said is we've heard this to the context that a lot of the intellectuals, like I speak on the intellectuals or the academics who speak on things, but in a nuanced way where we don't want to focus on the solutions anymore. We want to look back into history and see why these things have been led to where they are. Institutional racism is an issue, but instead of us trying to maneuver and find ways to deal with it, we are looking for support, like something to gain, like reparations. We speak on reparations a lot. I mean, I know it's a big topic in America, if it might lead to something, a stepping stone for them, but I don't know. I really don't know how that could change anything. In the UK, we speak on how certain companies like banks were involved in the contribution to the, you know, colonization and mass enslavement, and we hope that could mitigate things. Like when they speak on racial equity, I'm like, this is a losing battle. We are not going to get anywhere with this. This is just mumbo jumbo. We need action in other ways. How do we save those who live in the dysfunction that we speak against, and how do we continue to eventually thrive? But we sit in the corner and we kind of play the blame game too often. But we need to do more shaming as well. The shame game needs to go along with the, you know, figuring out what to do, because some of these folks in our society and in our community need to be woken up, and they just don't have that drive because no one is speaking out against that dysfunction. And I will bring it up again and again. But beyond that, yeah, thanks for your input.
It's like,
anything else?
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, that's why, you know, on my channel, I do encourage men. You know, I've got my little hashtag, you know, separate and surrogate. And it's I don't really believe that most people or most men would really ever form their own kind of community where there are no women. But men have to have that mentality that we're moving forward without women. Women cannot be the central focus of men, because at the end of the day, women are not going to fix these problems. It's just not in our nature. We don't have the skill set. You know, it's hard to hear, but women don't even go into the fields that would, you know, keep a society running. Like, you very rarely see a woman sweeping the street. Maybe in the States it's more common, but I know the dirty jobs and the hard jobs, we don't see women doing those things. What actually builds and keeps the society going are predominantly, you know, roles filled by men. So we need to enrich the men. We need to encourage the men. And you know, you may have to let a lot of people go by the wayside, because if they're not, you know, if they're too old to mold, if they're not ready to build, there's nothing you can do with them. And so it's tough. But like you said, there's always a new generation of people coming through, and they are the ones who can be woken up. But the ones who are older and who don't want to get on board with supporting Black people trying to because power is in economics. It's not really in how deep your melanin is, or can you trace your lineage back to like Tutankhamun or something. All that's great. If you do that, that's fine. But you can't take that to the bank. People they don't want to see the color of your skin. They want to see the color of your money. Okay. And we're in a cycle of poverty.
Yeah.
We're in a cycle of lack of education, a deficit of skills. We're not represented where it really matters, not in athletics, not in music. We want to see teachers, lawyers, doctors, architects, surveyors. This is what we need so that we can compete as a group. And unfortunately, women are not really going to do that. They're not going to back initiatives the way we need them to. It's like, I always say this, I wish Tariq Nasheed would build that school, because I know at least it would get built. Okay? I know he's got the power.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to message Tariq and get on him and harass him every time he goes live or something and just say, build the school. But again, why do people back Umar? Even though Tariq got 1 million recently, he got over 1 million for his Hidden History Museum. But why did people back Umar? Because he speaks well and it touches Black people emotionally. But where's the evidence he could actually come through on what he said? So it is a tough. It's a very big uphill battle. And you can't really get everybody on board, but if you can find a collection of like-minded Black people, as they say, even the biggest tree, it starts off as a small seed. So just coming together and everybody doing their part, over time, it will pick up momentum. Even if it doesn't change the world, you may change your town, you may change your area, you may change your little corner of the world, and that's enough. What else can you do? Do you know what I mean?
Understood. Yep. You brought up one thing. How come? Because Tariq has a whole track record of producing things after donations, and taking it on, actually bringing his ideas into physical, manifestation. And yes, that's a great example as well. I would say he's still like in that pro-Black sphere of things where it's not really on just solutions, but he has the landmark in terms of showing a portfolio of him doing work. So that's a very good example. But there's still an agenda there. Like there's certain people who make excuses for dysfunction, that they will promote it and hope that let's do things together, let's hustle together to make something anew. So I get that too. But I'm on the stance of, hey, we should kind of focus on ourselves, accountability. We live in the now. We get it. Stuff happened in the past. I get it. But what are we going to do to be aggressive now? Like, if we have to work two times harder, that's fine. Let's do, it's better than nothing. So, yeah, I think the point has been made with that. Yeah. Anything else?
No, I was just going to say, when it comes to why do people, defend dysfunction, this is going to sound really harsh, but, these views do not necessarily reflect the views of the Duke channel. Okay, I always have to say that because, I'm always going to say something messed up. But, we have to just keep it real. For some of these people, they're looking at things through the lens of the people they know personally and care about. It's either them or someone in their family or someone in their friend circle. And they're like, if so-and-so or such and such were to be left behind, that includes maybe my mama, maybe my sister, my family, me. Do you understand? So sometimes I feel like Black people defend dysfunction because they understand if a strong line were to be made, a lot of people would be disqualified. And, I know this might be contentious, but, this is one of the reasons why a lot of women have a real big issue with Kevin Samuels, because he says at this age, after you've done certain things, you've gone down this path, it's pretty much a wrap for you. And a lot of women have been fed this lie, for example, I'm just using this as a simile, that, you never lose value. You always have more fish in the sea. Your options never end. Black doesn't crack. And then you get him coming along telling you you're in the danger zone and giving you the salute, and you're like, it's almost like you were in the middle of a sleepwalk and somebody woke you up. And that's how a lot of Black people are. They're like, if we really got this community together, a lot of us couldn't get in. We've done too much dirt, criminal records too long, too many kids, too many this, too many that. And so a lot of Black people, they're trying to save everybody because they understand some of the people they care about wouldn't make it otherwise. And it's tough. It is hard, you know, to think that someone you care about could end up homeless or whatever. But everyone makes mistakes, but you got to be willing to try and fix those mistakes and turn it around. That's all I can say. Somebody who's not willing to work with what other people are trying to build, unfortunately, you know, they just can't be a part of it.
Absolutely. No. Again, another perfect point. I wish I had a soundbite where I just make an explosion, because you're hitting it on the nail again. You made a huge point there. I want to make a note on that. It is close to home for a lot of people, and I'll say it's almost the same with me or with anyone who feels like we need to re-emphasize accountability. Like I'm gonna drop in a personal family situation as well. Like I have in-laws, okay. You know, the Guyanese in-laws, and they came from a family of wealth. Like they were doing well for themselves, okay. And one thing was, I grew up with the children of the family, like were of similar ages, but they didn't value education, even though they went to private school. They had more. So they lived in a better neighborhood, you know. A bunch of like my cousins basically that didn't appreciate like what their parents had to fight for, what their grandparents had to fight for. They were down for the hood. You know, they lived in a part of West London that was nice, but they wanted to always visit East London. They were a part of that lifestyle. Their parents let them do whatever they wanted. They didn't pass on the, you know, the drive that was passed on throughout the generations. They chose not to. You know, one had a child out of wedlock and chose not to, you know, be serious about her education. The other guy got involved in gang crime. And I'm thinking these kids came from a better environment than I did. But you promoted that, you know, lifestyle, this young, youthful, I don't give a damn. We had that a lot in a lot of, you know, affluent families, even in the white community, that just don't give a damn. That's the culture that's being allowed and enabled, even in those who came from a good life and who had a metal spoon in their mouth. But because they're Black, they felt the need to embrace that culture. So that's always got to me, because I'm not just speaking on people who came from but I'm speaking on those who are in the position even higher than me, but embraced dysfunction. I'm sitting there like, look what you're doing. This is what we represent. But I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Because, you know, especially people, I'm assuming you're talking about young people.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, after a while, I think young people, they drift away from their family and they really crave peer acceptance. And you were talking about, you know, I think it was children in Germany and the culture, these children were operating the same way. And I think somebody said, was it Thomas Sowell or what, said there was no rap there?
Thomas Sowell.
Yeah, he said there's no rap. It's like, and he makes a valid point, because rap in and of itself comes with an entire culture. It comes with an entire ethos, like a ride or die that you live by. So it's like, even these young people who grow up, and it's not just Black kids. You know, I've been to Northwest London, in a very affluent part of London, and I see, you know, white kids coming out of the house, and I know that house is valued over £1 million, and pants are sagging. They dress like, you know, a whole road man. I swear, sometimes I smell weed in the air. We know these rich kids, they do all kind of drugs. They do all kind of pharmaceuticals, okay? So I pretty much saw a drug deal where the guy, he stopped at like house number 20, bust the corner, and like the guy got back out again. I thought, why did you take a car 10 doors. And I realized, oh, because when you drove around the corner, you did a deal. Do you understand? But I was like, how could you come from
Yeah.
such affluence and your pants are sagging and you look like you're about to go and sit on the street corner to smoke weed with your friends? And it's because he's embracing that culture and he's rebelling against his upbringing. So you have to completely remove that option in some instances for people to actually say, I can't be about that life. And it's tough now because with media and social media, even if you try to physically remove the child, that connection via the media will always now kind of play a part, so it's tough. You got to have no TV and like a very basic phone. Just
No,
I don't know. It's tough. It's tough because the internet is a gateway at this point.
It is. You mentioned rebellion. Like, yes, definitely. Young people would go through a phase in their life, but what I'm even trying to highlight is that even at the adult stage of a person's life, they've already missed out on a lot because they've chosen this lifestyle. And then you mentioned how the internet, social media influences people. If people remember the age of like world star hip hop and the mentality that came from that, it permeated the way we think as well. Because young people of a particular culture would recognize that, okay, if they could be white, they could be Asian, but look at what the hip hop gangster lifestyle was about, and only see it from a distance or resonate with it based on just being youthful, right? Just being young people. But then they had their own culture, which is of, okay, I have to be disciplined. I have to make sure I make my parents proud. They accepted that they can separate the two. They might end up doing drugs in uni, but then, I better make sure I get this degree and get a job at the end of the day. Majority of them would leave that till the end. But again, essentially, among the black community, we think that it's part of our identity rather than, that dysfunction, selling drugs or all of that. You're meant to leave that as soon as possible. But no, if you do anything deviating from that, you're not part of your identity anymore. You're trying to act white. So I'm attacking that as much as I can. Like, don't label that not your culture.
It's like a very much all or nothing mentality. It's either like you're, an Anthony Bryan Logan, Hulk Hogan, Jesse Lee Peterson sellout, or you're hotepping it up all over the place like Umar. You can't just eat the meat and spit the bone with a lot of black people. It's okay to get education. The bottom line is this. I was actually going to do a short on this, but I'm going to say it here. The black community in the West has been engineered backwards. A lot of the things that societies around the world who are thriving don't value, we esteem very highly. And things that are really important that we should be focused on, these are the things that are looked down upon. And I get in America why that might be, because, you don't want to be seen as the Negro trying to usurp authority and power from the white man. So you always have to play second fiddle. You could say that's partly ingrained into black communities in America, but it's time to kind of get out of that now and understand that, education or speaking well or dressing in a suit or whatever is not acting white. It's opening up your opportunity to be competitive, because every other culture has an issue with Western culture. But when they come to the West, they embrace what they need to get what they want out of the system. It's only black people who have pretty much everything at their disposal, even things like citizenship, and they find it really hard to tap in to what other people are tapping into. And we become our own worst enemy, because the more we embrace what we think is black culture, in inverted commas, is the more we get shut out from where we need to be, because we're not qualified to be there. It's like, and this is why I always attack the media, because the media sells black people this idea that being authentically black is speaking bad, eating fried chicken, and rapping or catching a ball. And we're like, yeah, this is what the black experience is like. And then when we go to get a job, we show up looking raggedy, and then we say it's racism. Well, even if it is racism, you embraced something that was ultimately going to make it easier for you to be discriminated against. So it's like, it's like you've got to understand where the Kool-Aid is and avoid it, okay? White supremacy sets the trap, and once you know where the trap is, your job was to walk around the trap, not still go into the trap, okay? So this is why I talk about things like there's a lot of advertisements and commercials and billboards where I see a lot of black men in dresses, or they're looking like gender ambiguous. And I'm like, you got to see this for what it is. They're trying to condition you to, to be emasculated as a man. Or I was on the tube the other day and there was a picture of a woman and it had a number of labels, and it was like mom, friend, entrepreneur. And I put it up on my Instagram. I said, what's missing? What's wrong with this picture? It was about daycare. It was a commercial for daycare. And somebody came through and they were like, I noticed that it doesn't say partner. I said, you're close, look again. And you got it right. And I said, they went to the trouble of, you can see one of her hands has a huge ring on it. But how come in this poster of a black woman looking for daycare, she has a ring, but they put friend, but they didn't put wife? Wife should have been the first one on the list. Even if you have a husband, you still might need daycare. And I said, black women, you have to understand this is part of the conditioning. They don't want you to believe one day you can be a wife. Or even if you're a wife, it's not even worth mentioning. You know, your husband is like the second-class citizen in that household. In fact, he's third or fourth after the dog, maybe. You have to see the programming. And then the person said, oh my God, I didn't even notice she had on a ring. It didn't really look like a wedding band, but you would assume it was a ring. You got a kid, but you've got no partner. And then I saw the same poster with a non-black woman. And even though I don't know what kind of partner she's got, they made sure they included in the wording partner. So she's got somebody, whether she's a lesbian, whether she's got a fiance, or even a husband. When they put the non-black woman, they make sure they showcase she's got somebody. But the black woman, even with the ring, she's like a single mother with no man. I said, you've got to see the propaganda, the subliminal messaging that they're constantly feeding you, so you can see it for what it is and avoid it. Okay? We don't want to be like the Hoteps who are crying every day about white supremacy, because white supremacy is not slavery. During slavery, you were constricted. There were lots of things you couldn't access. Under white supremacy, it's mental slavery. They condition you to operate in a certain way, and then it becomes, I can't say this word, deleterious. It becomes detrimental to you down the road. Like, oh, don't try to go to school to be a doctor, try and pursue a rap career. Well, even if you become a rapper, you'll probably go bankrupt because someone else is managing your finances and they're not paying your taxes. Do you know, like, look how many rappers go to prison because of taxes. It's because they give you songs, you sing them, you make everybody in the industry money, and then afterwards, when they're done with you, they say, oh, by the way, we forgot to file these taxes. Now you're bankrupt and you might go to prison. Like, what is that? But how many black people every year want to be a rapper? It's like, don't you understand? They're selling you a dream that's ultimately going to last 10, 15 years. And then you are going to be doing like, there was one rapper and they found him doing Uber. I can't remember who that was. It wasn't Flo Rida, but it was somebody like that.
Yeah. I remember that.
So
they were mocking it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like he's making honest money. But the thing about it is this: he never knew one day his time would be up. This is part of that white supremacy programming that you have to recognize. and then once you know where the trap is, you avoid it.
Indeed. You definitely gave it there. You gave it them, Lady A. 1 second. So who's tuning in with us? Would you like an input? No name.
Yeah, Smith Twist.
Hey, what are you doing covertly?
I'm not being covert. StreamYard does this. It happens on multiple people's streams. It just puts the name. It's just like, I think I said it like that one time, and I think by default it just keeps leaving it like that, and I keep forgetting.
Right.
But anyway, hold on. I can probably fix it. But yeah,
Your sound is a bit low, but yeah, you're okay. Give your input, bro. Yeah, just a bit low.
Okay, hold on. I'll come out and I'll come back in.
No, you're better now, actually.
Okay.
You in the beginning you were low, but yeah, you can go on.
Okay, yeah. No, I was just listening, and we've had, we talk about this topic and stuff, this separation, and all of that, the Pookies and all the nonsense. I was curious though. I don't know if you saw it put in the back chat. I was curious, like, because I think I missed the part on your description. It says that there was something about people who were like saying something to you about your views on this. I'm guessing you already spoke about it.
Oh yeah, because I'm always promoting. I'm always promoting the idea of If you could, let me mute you for a second. There's an echo. 1 second. Yeah, so like in different spaces I've been on, I've kind of thrown out an ideology. So I've been on Clubhouse and I've said these things and I get a reaction. Even on this space here, some people we engage with will disagree with me, and there's a pushback because there's this agenda where I'm off code. I shouldn't shame or look down on people who act a certain way, like below me or beneath me. But I don't see it that way. I see it of more of a dysfunction doesn't always have to associate with someone's socioeconomic background. Like the example I just gave about two family members who came from affluence but chose to live in a degenerate, lifestyle, associate with blackness, being their true blackness, like people would love to say. I was resonating with that more because they're on a certain level where there's no reason for you to go even lower because you're being black. That resonated with me. When I say it out on social media, there's pushback because it's like, oh, you're just shaming people. You're being elitist, as Lady A would say. And now there's something wrong with black people who speak this way. I didn't know until just more recently. So, yeah, what do you think about that, Myth?
Yeah, there is something wrong with us. There is something wrong with us. Is the fact that we ain't typical and we ain't trying to do the same thing as everyone else in the community. So, by their logic, there is something wrong with you, Because if the idea of right, we all know what the idea of right is to be impoverished, and the thing is that it's not even about being impoverished because black people love money. Like they love worshiping money. Look at how rappers, what they're doing when they're flossing and all this and designer, and like they like the idea of being rich, but it's a hood rich mentality. That's the type of rich they like. They like the idea of getting out the mud from the hood. And I've said this before, I can understand that to an extent. Like, I'm going to be honest with you, it took me years, but I can understand to an extent where the whole, idea of not wanting to be successful through the traditional channels, like what the white man said you have to do. I can understand the idea of pushing back against that. But ultimately, it's about results. If you know that it's just not working overall, then you need to switch your strategy. That's just a smart thing to do. I understand it. You might look at certain things and think, well, that's what the white man standard is. That's what the white man told me is, blah, blah. But by the same token, the white man's the same one who's signing all your favorite rappers, though. And you like them. You get what I'm saying? The white man's the one who's putting a lot of these lyrics into their mouths, and you like that. So, I mean, if you've got issues with just everything to do with white people, because that is a big part of why we have the rejection that we have in with a lot of people, is because they're viewing it as the whiteness thing. Like I heard you guys already mention, and we've said it numerous times, the idea of, oh, you're acting white, or you're being white, is it means that the things that would be deemed productive get classified as, well, you must be buying into white supremacy then. That's why you're doing it. Like even a simple thing like a hobby, you got certain hobbies that you might do. It's like, that's a white thing to do. And I get, again, let's just be honest. I get where I get it. I know what they mean. I'm not dumb. I'm not oblivious. I know why they'll say something like hiking or rock climbing is a white thing to do. I get it. But you see, the problem is that that mentality, it is so limiting. And it means that you end up in this narrow path and this narrow idea of what a black person can be. And that's not good. If you're going to limit people like that, then it means we all have to do the exact same thing. And the problem is, the things that we value are things that most people can't do, no matter what their demographic is. Imagine if all the white kids just wanted to be rappers. You know what I mean? Like they didn't value anything else. They get the exact same results because they're all trying to jump into something that has an extremely low success rate, right? It's the same thing. If all of us were trying to be entrepreneurs, if everyone was trying to build business, that's not going to work for everyone. You know, like we can't all think like that. So there's got to be an understanding that certain things are valuable, and you know, engaging in them doesn't make you any less black or whatever. But you know, truth be told, I don't have faith in the majority to understand that, so I don't really care what, you know, like they think, because you're saying people give you pushbacks like, whatever. Because at this point, the majority aren't going to get it. There's no incentive for them in their minds to do so, because they enjoy being in the dysfunction. It's where they're comfortable. Why would they give it up? It's all they know, and it's all they really want to know. You know, so they're not gonna want to hear what you've got to say on it, to be truthfully honest. That's why I said the people who are actually about doing something, those are the people you've got to focus on. Like, you know, forget the whole like, oh, we all got to go together. No, we don't. No one else does that. Okay, no one else does that. That's why there's class separations. That's why you got it where certain people do certain things. There's never all of us are going. That it doesn't work like that. The only problem with us as black people, and this is where our big disadvantage is, with other groups, you know, they come from their nations and their cultures and their customs. And I'm not sure who it was in the chat because I haven't seen it recently. Maybe it was White Maz who said it. I'm not sure, but I think someone, it might have been Bro from Rum, but someone said that about elites kind of coming out of the community and then like kind of not like staying in it, or I guess like kind of not helping, right? And I mean, what's your thoughts on that? I've got my thoughts, but I'm actually curious what your thoughts are on it first.
I would say not all. Let me mute. Yeah. So I would say there are some definitely who see themselves leaving the community once they're done and not having to associate with the going back and mentoring and helping others. But the thing is, that's their choice. They chose to do that because they made it out maybe themselves, and they probably just help their family and the closest friends. But the idea of having this sort of grand scheme of contributing back is not for everyone. So I would say some people just don't have the capacity to all this, because to them it's like they've done what they could in their life. Why should celebrity, like, they should give back to the community because they made it out? And it's like expect a will. When some back, everyone wants to be Robin Hood. That's fine. Should to was earlier in the stream of Denzel. Some people even
You're bugging. You're bugging. Your connection is I don't know what it's on, but it's on something else.
It's I live.
You're so badly choppy, I can't hear nothing. I'm pretty sure it's not just me. Yeah, they're saying in the chat as well. Yeah.
Give me 1 second.
See, it would be when I asked him the question when it decided to just start cutting off. It would be.
There's two of me now.
Oh yeah, was you saying that it's echoing when you through my mic when you speak?
Yeah, through your voice. Yeah, through your speaker.
Okay, I'm gonna come out and come back in. That should fix it.
All right. So I don't know if anyone heard me, but I mentioned an example. Yeah. So for those who have come out of the predicament they're in a successful position, and the ones who are vocal, they're more likely to commit to contributing back, and some might be more conservative minded. So I use an example as Denzel Washington. He is very involved in the community, but he has a conservative approach to things where he says we should focus on the home, forget about the system, it's what's happening in the family. So his mentality is, I'm tired of hearing about what the system has done to oppress young black men when there aren't any fathers in the house. And a lot of people say that's a conservative comment, but no one's going to call him a sellout. No one's going to call him a coon, because he's contributed a lot to the community. So I think the more vocal you are, the more likely you should be doing something back. And that's where I would take that approach, you know? Well, yeah, what do you think?
Yeah.
Was I lagging again?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely a case of like I think like it shouldn't be too strongly like this, but I do think at the end of the day, the messenger matters as much, if not more, than the message, because that's just how a lot of people operate. So if you have a background that certain people look at as not being very black, and then you're talking on what black people should do, a lot of people are just going to disregard your comments immediately. You know what I mean? Because they're just going to view it like, well, who are you to tell me anything? You ain't even connected to the community. Even if what you're saying is on point. Now you take the exact same words and you put it in the mouth of some rapper, everyone's gonna be like, yeah, you know, man, I can see what he's saying, man, you know, cause he's, you know, it's like it's the exact same thing, but because the person saying it has been through certain things that, again, we identify as that's what black people are or whatever, it's like there's more value to it. And the thing is, I do kind of get it, you know, because it's like at the end of the day, it's like sometimes when I hear white people saying certain things about black people, and it's facts. But sometimes it's just the fact that it's a white person saying it is a little bit like, you know, because I know, especially if you didn't come from that, it's kind of like, why is it them that have to say it? You know, like, why isn't it a black person saying it? You get what I mean? So I do think sometimes, and I'm not going to disregard the truth because I'm not that small-minded, but I know a lot of people will be. And I think that if you're intelligent enough to understand that what we're saying, you know, this stuff's important, you also got to know about having the face of things. This is why a lot of companies will hire people to be the face of a company or the face of a message that they know can relate to the people they're trying to get a message to, because they know that, you know, the actual person who's got the agenda, using them might not really go down as well. You get what I'm saying? Because it's like, people might look at that person like, who are you to say anything? So they will get people who fit that image, who fit that, and use them as the conduit through which they channel, you know, these ideas. And I think that that's something that we don't think of very much, because we just think, well, I should, no matter who it is, if it's the truth, it should be the truth. And it should, in an ideal world, it should work like that. But the truth of the matter is it doesn't. People respond a lot to symbolism, and, you know, like, especially black people, like, and they do care a lot about where you come from and what your background is and what your history is. You said it earlier, I heard you saying, like, you're speaking on these things because it's affected you personally, right? So that's very different than if some guy who, you know, even if he's black, if he's talking and he sounds, like people say, like he's white or anything like that, and he just seems to come across completely like he's disconnected, it is going to be a little tough to listen to him. I'm not going to, like, even for me, I am going to, even if I know he's saying the truth, I'm going to kind of think, you're right, but it's just that the fact is you saying it, and it's like, it shouldn't be like that. But the truth of the matter is, it is. And, you know, people who are pragmatic, we don't worry too much about how things should be. We worry about how the world is. And the way it is that people care. So if you're smart and you really care about pushing these ideas, you're going to have to deal with that reality. And so that means you're going to need to face it. So even, what I'm trying to say is, even if you had these dysfunctional people or whatever who were on board with your idea, and they're the mouthpieces. You know, I think things like rap music, seeing as how so many people are bought into hip hop and all that stuff, that's why it's a good vehicle for putting out certain messages. Like, I'm not into it like that, like in terms of making music myself, but I've said it 1,000,001 times that media is a good way of getting these ideas out there, because it's something a lot of people are influenced by. And that's not just black people, that's people in general. Social media is proving that most people are being heavily influenced by the things they're seeing online. So if you know, there's a reason why corporations put millions into advertising, millions into marketing for their next blockbuster that they've got coming out, or their TV series or whatever. There's a reason. Why are they putting money into these things if they don't matter? You know, why has propaganda been used throughout history with posters and all kinds of stuff if it doesn't matter? Obviously it does. You know what I mean? Like, people who understand that, they know how to manipulate the imagery and the words and all that so that they can get the ideas that they want across in the correct way. So in terms of what you guys have been talking about, that's just one of the things I think matters, because again, with what was said in the comments about like the elites kind of doing their thing and then kind of just fucking off and being like, but in the community, I think Vincent said to someone like, well, why should those guys bother? Like, why should they come back to the community and help or do anything? And again, this is where I think a big part of the contention comes from, because when we're, you know, if you're a guy who's coming up, you don't get that appreciation from the community on ground zero a lot of the time, like we've said, right? So because it's not, those things aren't seen necessarily as being black, or so you might get pushed out from a younger age. So then you start to find, oh, well, I get more acceptance when I go outside of that, right? And the issue is that is oftentimes the truth. But that's a problem, because what it means is it leads to that exact mentality of, well, why should I go back and help them? Because they didn't help me. You see, and like that's the issue right there. Like, because you know, it doesn't even have to be the wider community. I already just said whatever. But even if you're talking about having a separation, you're not gonna get that if the guys who succeed just don't want nothing to do with black people, period. Like, if they're just like, I don't want to be around no black people, I don't care who they are, I just want to be around them, or they don't really want to make any community with them because they're just like, I'm cool just being around other groups of people and that's it, then there's no incentive to even do the class separation thing that we talk about. Like, I just think sometimes I look at black people as a whole, whether they've got stuff or they don't have stuff, and I think the majority of them are not interested in really doing anything that's collective based. And I can't say I blame them, because we're in an era of individualism. I think in this time period, it's a lot harder now than it used to be in the past to do the things we're talking about, because it's like, it's so much easier to thrive as an individual and not wait or rely on other people, you know? So I think that's something that plays very heavily against any ideas of forming, you know, fixing either the community we've got here, which I think is impossible, or creating a different one that's more positive. But I think it's at least worth trying. That's my personal take on it anyway. It's just not easy to know how to get to that point.
No, you definitely worded it very well. I would just say that, yeah, not everyone is down to make a change. Like, it's not their obligation to, but there are people who are driven to. That's the difference. And if they want change, it's like, okay, the term separation, I don't want people to get the wrong idea. The main thing is to, if we want to create an image, like the term used a lot is black excellence, right? We want to work with people among that, you know, socioeconomic level. They have the capital to do so. We want to work with them more in order to reach a certain sort of example of what the community can look like, rather than trying to climb and pick up everyone who might be complacent about change. So it really depends. You can try and help everyone if you want, but you're more likely to get on with someone on your level and build something out of it. We talk about group economics because every other group does it. I don't know why we try and avoid being like everyone else in terms of every other culture. It's successful. It's the best way to operate. But for some reason, we have this Robin Hood mentality, like in the community. Like we're not progressing until all of us progress. And it's like, yo, wait, we can progress and reach and bring people with us rather than just hold back and say, oh, I'm never leaving the hood, even if I have money. It's like, why would you put yourself in that position? So yeah, that's definitely rounding up what we've all said, to be honest. Yeah, any input before I end? I wanted, the last thing to bring up was Clubhouse. I want to talk on that. That's what drove me even more to be vocal, because I've noticed that in those spaces, people like making noise, basically voicing their opinion on the community, but no one's going anywhere with it. And then when I brought up that idea that, hey, maybe we need to segment how we view each other, who we work with, it's like, no, why would you say that? No, like, it's like, come on, this is not brand new. So yeah, anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I thought it was gonna. I was thinking that was gonna be part of it, because I know you've been on there, and I'm not being funny. I think I said to Vincent, and maybe you as well, but the people on there, they're not, in my opinion, a lot of them are not on the same caliber as the people that you find on YouTube. Like, in terms of their,
right.
For example, remember when you brought up Robert F. Smith, and you was like, does anyone know this? And it was dead silent, and there was a good number of people there, and no one knew who this guy was, and they were mostly all Americans. I'm thinking to myself, that's nuts. Like, and then one person's like, oh, they don't teach us about black people with money. I'm like, bro, like, what are you talking about? Like, Google exists, like, and it's crazy, because it's just like on YouTube, I know people in here get a bad rap or anything, but I swear to God, you'd be surprised, man. Like, a lot of people, when you have these conversations, they really are not equipped for having them. Now, don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean there aren't people who make some good points sometimes, but it's just, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've been on there way more than me. I've only been on there when you've been talking sometimes, but it's just, from what I've seen of it,
I'm tired of it.
I'm tired of it, and I've only been in 2 rooms.
I'm telling you.
And I'm tired of it. That's why that the time you had the thing, I was on there, and I said like, where's the solutions? And then the guy went at me kind of like, he's like, he's like, well, what do you mean, man? Like, you're acting like you're above the chaos and da da da. And I'm like, bro, I'm just thinking, it's just, like, it's just too much circular discussion. I feel like the same with YouTube as well. It's just too much circular discussion. It's like, okay, cool, we get it, race, cool, we get it, blah blah blah. Like, but what's the actionable things that you're going to do about it? Like, what are you actually practically going to sit down? Step one, what are you going to do? Because I don't think people want to have that talk. I don't think they're ready to have it, and that's it's annoying, because truth be told, that's what it takes. And I've said it before, but I don't think you have all the time in the world, which I think is another aspect that doesn't get thought about. But it's like, I know people say things take time, but unfortunately, time doesn't wait. The world's not waiting, and it's moving faster and faster every year. You don't have, I don't honestly believe you have actually as much time as people think to just sit around doing mental masturbation all the time. Like, if you seriously are serious about all this stuff, and you really think you're gonna, create this new Black Mecca community, then you need to start practically thinking about how you're gonna do it. That's why you can't be on this Uma Johnson time of, oh, I'm gonna make a school and we're just sitting about waiting. And that's just one school. I mean, like, it's one school. You know what I mean? Like, there's people who make multiple schools. And I don't think it's a big deal. Like, whether or not, like, I don't think everyone's got to make these types of things, but I mean, like, think about it. We're talking about basic things here. Like, things that, and when I say basic, I don't mean basic like I'm gonna get up and do it, you're gonna get up and do it, like that type of basic. I mean basic in terms of on the grand scale what we're talking about. Having things like school buildings or those kinds of things, or a restaurant or something, like these aren't major things. Like, people I know have got those things. Maybe not at school, but like other types of buildings and stuff. And it's not some thing where it's this crazy thing. I think Vincent said this before about how with Black people a lot of times we think it's so amazing and shocking to do things that for other groups of people it's like standard.
It's very simple. Standards.
Yeah, and it's like just normal things. Like, if you know how to write, a line of code, it's like, wow, how did you do that? Where did you learn that from? That's not me. I don't know how to write code, but that's how people look at it sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, because to them, again, we said it earlier, like, oh, that's a white person's thing or whatever, right? So it's like, where did they're thinking we don't learn that in the hood. So where you learn that from? You know what I mean? It just reminds me, like, back in the day when you had a Black person who could read or whatever, it was like, who taught you how to read, boy? You know, that's what it reminds me of. You know, it's ridiculous.
No, the thing is, people are making excuses during the information age. Like, we circulate information so fast. It's what you do with your time. Or what type of things are you scrolling past? Are you actually searching up stuff, or are you just scrolling past the Instagram? Like, that's the thing. A lot of people make excuses. Social media has become this grandiose thing where, yeah, a small thing like building a school is such a big deal, when in reality things are being done left, right, and center. In fact, even among black people, let's not even get it wrong. Like, even within our community, people create businesses, work together. They have their own safe havens where they circulate money. Among people like in a generation above us, like people in their 40s, 50s, are doing the business, right? It's just to popularize it, to make it an image that we take on. We don't have that scene in front of us. We're not doing grand things in the West, you know.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is that it's not about the fact that there's no black people doing any of these things or whatever, but it's the fact that it's not publicized. And in this day and age in particular, if you are not in some shape or form visible on social media with your moves, it's like it doesn't exist. You get what I'm saying? Now, this is good when you don't want people to know what you're doing, right? But if you're talking about like what we're talking about here, where you want to have an image, you want to create an example, then you have to publicize those things. The reason why, and you have to be loud about it, and it's gonna be maybe a bit difficult, because the alternative, which is the standard for us, the dysfunction, that is what is loud right now. That is what everyone sees, and there is a lot of money pumped into that. So rappers always talk about all the time, like the difference between a conscious rapper and just a regular rapper out there who's talking about the same things, like, I'm at the packs and, bitches and twerking, Like, we all know that the guy who's the conscious rapper, he might be putting out a decent or good message, but the problem is that he maybe doesn't get as much, push behind him, because what he's saying isn't really jiving with people. And the truth of the matter is, people can blame executives or the white man or the system, but they don't like to accept their own, their own role that they play in these things, especially in this day and age. Like, at this point, if someone is not succeeding and they're doing all they can, sometimes people just don't fuck with certain things. This has always been the case. Like, there's always been people that have tried to push certain movements in the past, but people just weren't doing it, or they weren't going with it. And some people say they were ahead of their time, because then decades later or centuries later, people look back and are like, oh, their ideas were revolutionary. Why didn't the people at the time? Let's look at scientists, right? The theory of evolution that every single person now clings to so strongly, that every scientist swears by, at the time, the contemporaries of the time saw that as, oh, that's some quack stuff. That doesn't make sense. That's nonsense, right? So there's a lot of ideas that we might be talking about today that is seen as nonsensical, or it's whatever. But then in the future, it's going to probably be the kind of stuff people look back on and think that was always the obvious solution. Why did anyone have a problem with it? But sometimes what it takes is people have to see what, they have to be in the right place to see it. And I've said it before, and I feel like it's a shame, but I do think for the majority of black people, they're going to have to just be smacked out of their dysfunctional bubble in order to understand like how bad it can get. You know what I mean? I think it's that I don't think we're at the point yet where they're going to understand and realize. That's why I'm saying there's no point wasting time worrying about the majority. And I know you're saying it as well, but because they ain't going to listen, and they ain't going to listen. And the truth be told, I just think people should lead by example anyway. Like, how are you going to talk about what black people should be doing if you ain't doing it yourself? That's another thing that annoys me. Like, it's like, if you got people who are sitting there, and I know you mentioned this earlier, the whole intellectual thing. You got black intellectuals sitting there. I don't personally like to call them intellectuals. I just call them academics, because to me they're not. To me they're not. What they're proposing isn't intelligent. So I don't like to call them that. Like, that's too much credit. But they're definitely academics. And they're definitely very educated, and they definitely understand the system. And that's what makes it an issue, is that they are smart people. So they have very good and smart ways of conveying the same dysfunctional narrative, and that makes them seem like, to those people who are higher brow, like, maybe there's a point to this, but it's like, it's a rare breed of black person who is intelligent enough to understand the types of nonsense that the academics are spouting, and also, you know, be from the same background where we understand the dysfunction at the ground level in you know, the Black community. Like, being a mixture of those things is not very common. Most of the time you're going to get it where a lot of the academic people are somewhat, they might feel like they're a little distant or a little, you know, like, I don't know how to explain, but, you know, you'll get Black people who kind of maybe feel like they've come from a background where they're a little different or whatever. Like, they've just come from different things to an extent, you know? And so in their mind, they're still part of, and that's why I find it weird when they reinforce things, because we said it before, like, they'll come from a good family, for example, or they'll come from things that they don't come from a single parent household, but they still push the same ideas, you know? And it's just like, why are you doing that? You're literally the example of the alternative. And that's another issue. Like, until that gets resolved, you know, I ain't listening to what academics have got to say. I don't respect most of them, to be truthfully honest. And that's a shame, because the thing we're talking about is that those people should be respected, you know, but I can't do it when I know they're pushing the same poison.
Right. Academics, I'm just saying, they defend this dysfunction by making excuses for it. And the more we allow that narrative to conjure up, that becomes our identity. It becomes our identity because we allow everything. Oh yeah, they burned down the community because of the oppression that the police, you know, brought to it. You remember the 2011 riots? Like, that was the excuse in London. That, oh yeah, you know, there was nothing. It was boiling over time. But I get that there is a symptom of a problem, but we can't continue to enable it. Yep, he stole because he had to. We can't play that game. We don't play it in third world countries. No one says, oh yeah, they live in the environment they do, so they're more likely to commit crime. No, we don't play those games over there. Let's not play that game in a first world country. We can't continue to do that. And it's mostly among us, among those who are the intellectuals. Like, yeah, I get how we're caught in that term too. Let's disconnect from that, because some of these intellectuals just have degrees just for the sake of it. No solutions. Just know how to voice things. They love hearing themselves speak.
Yeah, and look, I understand that. I think a lot of us like hearing ourselves speak. Let's just be honest. I mean, I do. It is what it is. But I don't think. But I'm just being honest. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean that I like pragmatism as well. I like to see results. You know. Like, I'm going to be honest, one of the most powerful things is to say something and speak something into existence. Like, you say, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and then you actually do it. You know what I mean? Like, that is one of the most powerful things. And it actually does shift your how you think about the world as well. A lot of white people, they don't take action on the things they're saying. So they're not going to have that mental shift where they're like, oh, I can actually make something happen. You know, something that I thought was just an idea. I actually did it. I actually was able to bring it into existence. And I'm not talking about some woo-woo kind of spiritual manifestation, but just on a real pragmatic level. You can say, like, it could be the smallest thing. You could just say, oh, I'm going to get a degree. Maybe you're the first person in your family to do it. And maybe you're in an environment where people don't really believe that, or they don't think you can do it, or whatever. I don't know. But you're like, no, I'm going to do it. And then you see the degree on your wall. It's like the fact that you were able to do it, it's going to put something in your mind where it's like, I can actually do something if I put my mind to it, right? I think that's an important thing, because at the end of the day, if there's no action and it's all theory, then what really is the point, you know? And I saw something in the chat that was said, I think White Matt said that our educators don't promote the good things that's happening enough. And I guess I kind of already mentioned that in a way, but yeah, I mean, that's
I wanted to give an example to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's good that it's brought up, because that's what I want to focus on. The academics, those who sit there and basically justify our problems as okay. They actually just say, yeah, it happens and there's nothing we can do about it, but just, you know, get help from the government. That's how they need to change. They need to remove the problem so we can actually thrive. No, that's not how it works, because other cultures, other groups in any location could be going through as worse and deal with it differently. So there was an example of a man, I forgot his name, but he's involved in politics. He started a program for young black kids, well, minority kids in the UK, called Growing Genius or something. I'll put a link in the description below later. And he was in a debate with a lot of these intellectuals in the UK, like Kehinde Andrews. There was another lady, Afua something, like there's a book she wrote, I forgot her name, but she's very involved in like news panels. And they were shaming him for, even though he's part of the work, he's proactive, he's influencing the community, he's encouraging young black kids to pursue STEM, and he's putting a lot of money in and following a lot of money. He has a conservative point of view where he says, let's not focus on white supremacy, racism, let's focus on improving things. Let's stop talking about reparations. Let's start talking about, funneling in money where it needs to go with what we have. But instead of getting praises, he's getting these people shaming him for undermining what the system has done to us. So again, there's this conflict of interest where those who are actually productive are being told off by the academics who are meant to rely on because they have the data and the stats, but they actually use the data and the stats to prevent a mindset of proactivity rather than holding on to a past that yes, we have to move on from. But sitting there, asking the British government that white supremacy has caused this and reparations is the only solution is a problem. And there are people out here saying, let's make a change now. Let's stop talking about this over and over again. And they're being shamed. I'm trying to reverse that. I'm just another voice, but I'm just saying I'm not hearing enough of that. Anywhere I go, I'm hearing the opposite. But within this space, we do talk on it. But it's aggravating to see the majority scream and shout about something else that won't really change anything. But again, I'm gonna lose hair, talking on this over and over again. But you hear what I'm saying,
Yeah, I guess. Damn, I forgot it now. There was one specific thing you said that I was gonna comment on.
Right.
But I think I forgot my thoughts now. Damn it.
Well, do you want the debate? Like, I forgot the name. So Kehinde Andrews, you're familiar with him, right? No, Kehinde Andrews. He's a academic in what school is it? I think University of Manchester. He's a professor on racial studies or something along the lines, and he shames people who undermine racism, like black people who want different than what is being told over and over again. But while you're thinking about it, let me just read the chat. So Ados Black, I've been seeing what he's been writing in the comments. But what are you saying? So most black Brits willingly moved to England. They left their all black countries to move to a mostly white one. Okay, and your point, perhaps the black Brits should invest in their all black countries instead of trying to be accepted into a mostly white one. Bro, this is not even the topic for it, but I'm ready to lay it down and give you the smoke because I don't know what you're talking about. But if you want to come into this space and have that conversation, come on the panel. I don't beat around the bush. This is, people think that I'm unaware of this type of topic. Like, no. First of all, a lot of these black Brits you're listening to on this panel were born here. So if you want to say that we can't speak on things that pertains to us, that's your problem. Because if, again, it has nothing to do with you, I spent most of my stream, I guess 95% of it talking about our issues, but you're here thinking that you've heard us speak on you. I don't know. If you want to say something again, go ahead, but I'm ready for the smoke if you want that. I don't know what they just come into these spaces and feel the need to complain about what we talk on the Western experience, because wherever you go in the West, Canada, US, Europe, we experience similar things and we speak on it. I don't know who you think you are to say that we can't speak on things that we care about just because we're second, third generation African or Caribbean. Do you even know about our history? No, but we know a lot about yours. Anyway, mind that. But whoever else is listening,
I'll ask you then, like, what do you think though,
Go
about
on.
the point he said about so even with us being, you know, whatever generations down, especially for me, like, but do you think that there's any validity to that though? Do you think that in any way
it's funny.
Black British people should in some way like maybe take their money and fund up country? Because you see, the thing about African Americans, I will say in quick relation to this is because of their history, they don't have the whole thing of, well, I'll just go back to my family over in, you know, Kenya or Nigeria.
Yeah.
So now if you do have that, then I guess what one could argue is then why don't you, and I'm playing devil's advocate, what one could argue, why don't you just take the money you make here, like what, you know, a lot of immigrants do, and go and build up those things rather than worrying about trying to, you know, thrive in the white man system. I guess that's kind of the point that's being made.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have much respect for the ADOS community because I don't have anything animosity to say. I don't know why there's I guess you assume that I'm saying something bad. I don't know. ADOS, Black, Just Solly, speak on it. But I would say we have this conversation already. We speak on it so often, like among Africans. I'm guessing Caribbeans do too, where we say, yeah, we want to invest back. It's always in my heart to do so.
In my experience.
Oh, not for you? Okay, that's
yeah,
cool.
I would say it's different.
But I
I'm
think
not saying no one does it, but no, I wouldn't say it's embedded in us as a group as it is with Africans.
Right. I guess it's because we have such a strong connection because we visit, we go back often, and we know we have family that are always actively reaching out to us. Apparently, the biggest economy in the continent, African continent, is what's the term for it? It's like basically it's a term where more money is coming into Africa from family and friends abroad than is like with any other industry in Africa. So if you total out the exports and imports, the largest comes from the expatriates of those who live abroad. So a lot of us do so. We work here, we grind here, and we send money back. I know my parents both do it. They send money back almost every year and buy plots of land to do this and that. They could be working, an African person could be working in a shop and saving a little bit of money to give back to someone in the village back home. So it's like people do this a lot. So when people speak on our experience in that way, I can tell already there's an ignorance, there's a gap in knowledge. You can't speak on things you haven't researched first. Until you get to that point, ask questions, know about what we do, rather than throw jabs just because these are talking points that I've seen before. I used to follow a lot of these groups that turned into anti-foreign black, and now you just assume that you want to hate on people who aren't like you. That's cool, but I'm well informed on your life experience, and you should be well informed on ours, because we do that a lot. Well, Africans in general. But yeah, anyway. Anything else, Myth? I can hit on what else is he saying?
Yeah, I was just looking at the chat.
Yeah. Exactly, Black Americans can't just leave it. Yeah, who's saying that? I don't know the conflict of interest there or the argument here. What's the point? What's your point, bro? I don't know what he's trying to raise here, but yeah, there's a huge difference in how we operate. But yes, we operate differently. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that.
But just in general, though, in case, I mean, the question is like, why even?
Wait, one second. This is another point he made, right? I'm not throwing jabs. It just doesn't make sense to combine Black American with Black people who have their own country. No, who's combining that? We're speaking of the Black experience in Western countries. We literally have similar plights, whatever you want to call it. But if I want to speak specifically on your ADOS experience, I would, but I'm not going to, because I'm not in the position to. I'm not speaking on it. I've mostly spoke on our experience here in the UK, Europe, whatever. But if you have an input, come on the panel. That's fine. I'm not in disagreement. I don't know what the rant is about, but yeah. Do you have anything else before I close up?
No, I was just gonna say, I guess in general though, when we do bring up Americans and African American situations to like punctuate our points with, it's because that stuff is known globally for all of us. Like if I go and speak to Americans and tell them about the stuff that's going on over here, like 99% of the time they don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. So it's like we know about their situation, their history far more than they know about us. So, and a lot of the time, the things that's going on over there influences what starts happening with other groups as well. Okay, it influences what starts happening with us, right? So we have to pay attention to it, whether we like it or not, for better or worse. You guys have a global influence, you know what I'm saying? And for the most part, it's not one that's necessarily positive. And you may not like that because we ain't American and we might say that, but it's just the honest truth. So, whether and the fact of the matter is, it's not like we're just saying, oh, African Americans are the fucked up people and and Black Brits, we're the victims. No, it's all some BS with Western Black culture in general. But because you have the one that has the biggest media machine, it just you influence more. So we can't really speak about it without addressing it to a certain extent because it influences the way people think.
Yeah, in fact, in this stream alone, I spent more time talking on my experience, the community I was brought up in, and what I used was a lot of academic texts that Americans use, and it literally reflects how we are now, like the fatherless rates, the problems within the community, and how we glorify certain forms of dysfunction. But to assume that we're just speaking on the Black American experience is wrong, because it's actually us as well dealing with the same thing. So it's like, if maybe you heard it as if, we're speaking on the ADOS experience, ADOS Black, but no, it's the same hair. It's the same hair. There are obvious differences, but we're focused on that Western experience we all have, is period, But yeah, that's besides the point. Before I close, I wanted to post like 2 videos before I close up so people can resonate with the message, because this is a long stream. We missed out. Anything you want to say, Myth, before I do?
No, man, I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. I've pretty much
That's cool.
All I want to say. I guess I will.
Thanks, bro.
Just quickly, to be productive. Don't just not just preaching. That's the only thing I really would say, because to be honest, like, to me, I think it's circular. It's circular, and we can't just talk and talk and talk. And I ain't just saying that. I think within my own life as well, like, I think it's important. I'm more focusing on the media aspect of it. So when people talk about media and we gotta try and do that and that's the side of it that I'm more focused on as of right now. But I think that's one area, and I think it is a crucial area. But that's one of the things. You don't have to do any of those things. People are like, I'm going to do STEM, whatever. And what YMI said, and I know we already touched on it, but it is very important, though, is like the people who achieve things, we have to be louder about it, man. Like, I'm sick and tired of the pussyfooting and feeling like you can't say something and be proud of the fact that you actually
don't want
some shit with yourself.
Upset anyone.
Yeah, but upset for what? If I don't care what it was, if you're an engineer, you're an electrician, okay, you should be proud of the fact it's like, look, I'm doing something with myself, and you should be okay. And you may not be a celebrity, you may not be the fresh to death, you may not be the flyest guy around, whatever. But at the end of the day, the people are gonna respect the fact that you respect yourself and that you are unshakable in your conviction about the fact that what you are doing, you have pride in it. Because what I too often see is that the Black people who are doing these things, they're not prideful enough about it. But you've got it where the most, dustier people with the most dysfunctional behavior are extremely proud. And we think that's okay, that's normal. We're going to celebrate the people who have no morals, no integrity, who have no, like those are the people we're propping up, and then we're surprised. And then the people who actually are about something, they prop them up as well. So you got a guy sitting there and he's actually doing well for himself, and he's not part of the dysfunction in that type of way on a day-to-day level. But then he's like, oh yeah, man, I don't see an issue. Like you just said, the academics who sit there and they want to make excuses and da-da-da. So to me, it's just like, I just recognize, like, if I'm just going to be blunt with it, I just think most people in the community, I think it's over. I just think it's a wrap. I think it's a wrap. I think it's a wrap. That's just what it is. I think it's over for him. Like, I'm gonna be real. I don't think they can fix it in time. Between the 4th industrial revolution, you know, with all of the new technology, with automation, AI, I don't think they can fix it in time. I just don't. I think they're going to end up in a permanent underclass state, and there's going to be individuals who get themselves out of it, and that's what it is. That being said, though, I will do my effort regardless, because for whatever reason, I mean, what else can I do, you know? And who knows? Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe in my own efforts, I'll prove myself wrong, and that's why I'll try. That's why, like, I'm not going to be exactly, even though I relate so much to what Vincent says when he's like, I just disconnect entirely from the community. Because everything I'm saying, it's like I'm leaning towards that, but there's something where I can't do it fully. Like I feel like I have ideas and I have a pragmatic way of approaching things where there's a chance. There's certain things I think we haven't tried yet, you know. And I'm thinking, if we could just try these things, maybe this will change.
With our image, right?
Yes, that's the main thing I'm focused on. I just think in terms of media, if there was just better examples of different types of things, because at the end of the day, black people are extremely influenced by entertainment. That's just the truth of it, you know, for better or worse. Even if you're going to sit there and say, well, we should be doctors, well then, okay, maybe what you need is things that are out there, okay, that like TV shows or music or whatever that has those things in it. Literally everyone else is doing this. Like everyone else is pushing these agendas through media, but I don't know why it sounds ridiculous sometimes to say it like that. Maybe it sounds too simplistic. I don't know. But the truth of the matter is that is what is pushing a lot of things, and that's what's getting a lot of people to think certain things are right. Look at how many people go and watch TV show and they model themselves off of certain characters they've seen. People might say that, oh, people don't do that, but they do that. Okay, there's a reason why. That's why people keep saying, oh, you know, why do they keep putting black men in these submissive positions, or why do they keep putting out an image of them being gay or
being in gangs?
The reason why people are upset with those types of ideas is because on some level you understand that media has a significant influence on how people think. It always has. So to me, that is something we have to change, and we've never had it since. I don't know really what period we have ever had it, if there was one. Like I don't know if there's been a period where we have. Like back in the day,
I would give around. There was a sweet spot. They would call it the golden 90s, like the age of like the renaissance of black culture in the West, where there was media. You know, I think of the film Boomerang, for example, with Eddie Murphy, where they showed black people in a working space where, we're just like everyone else. We can be in the corporate world. We could live that luxurious lifestyle. But again, if we had more of that being penetrated in the media, we wouldn't have to have this conversation, because it was like there were glimpses of it, but not enough that was profound or carried on throughout the decades. So that's one thing. Do you agree with that, or do you think it was still not enough of that?
No, I think it's. I mean, I don't know. I think as well, like, it's going to be, you know, it's going to be an intermixing of the culture and of course the media. But I think at the end of the day, like when people talk about like the generations coming up right now and whatever, and kids and they keep saying, oh, they're influenced. White people are saying this. Like, you know, even in China, they've made an entire thing around blocking certain forms of media because they don't want it to influence their people. Why would they do that if it doesn't matter? They understand that on some level it matters what people are putting into their mind and what they're seeing, right? So, but with us, the imagery we have surrounding ourselves for the most part isn't things that's, you know, like we're saying, towards productivity and all of that kind of stuff. We don't think that's cool or interesting or something to admire. Even the stereotypes that are associated around us, we all know what they are. Now look at the stereotypes of, say, an Asian person. Okay, so it might be that the Asian guy's always the nerd or the mathematician, or, you know, he's not usually the sex icon, generally speaking. You know, he's not usually let's just be real, that's not really what he gets typecast as, right? Like, that's not usually what it is. Now, but the problem is a lot of black men, they view that as like a win. Like the fact that they are typecast like that. You get what I'm saying? It's like, sure, it's a win in the short term, and look at how much it affects. That's a good example of how it does affect us, because we all know that in terms of the sexuality of and all that kind of stuff, because of media, people who don't even know black people have those ideas. If you meet people who come from countries where they aren't used to black people, where do they get their stereotypes from and their ideas? It's from media. You know,
Right.
like how else are they gonna know? And they'll have a whole bunch of stereotypes. Like you'll tell them something about yourself and they're shocked. Why are you shocked? Like how did you even have any preconceived notions? Well, because they've seen certain things in media and they're like, oh, I just thought black people, you know, do music and rap and da da da, and a lot of them do. So it's like it's you know, the problem is that when they do bump into a lot of black people, they will see proof of the stereotype. But this is what I'm trying to say. Like it's a mixture of you know, what people would say, like, you know, fiction, life imitating art and just that kind of stuff. But it's both. Art imitates life and life imitates art. It works both ways. It's not one way or the other. It's both. You know, and the fact of the matter is until we start basically switching that around, I think that's basically one of the last hopes. It might sound ridiculous because sometimes I say it to myself and I feel like, what's that really gonna do though? Will it really work? Maybe they'll just go and look at these things and they'll just be like, whatever. But I see it as it's one of the only options. You know, it's better to try
Project.
than to not try. It's better to try, because otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, if there's no effort towards that kind of stuff, then nothing will change. And the trajectory that black people are on ain't one that's going to be good for them in the long run. You know, so I just see it as should at least try. And hey, if nothing else, well, maybe you can get rich off of doing it. If nothing else,
right?
You know? So
right,
there's that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, look at all these people who are profiting off of the dysfunction. You get what I'm saying? They're profiting from selling, you know, the nonsense. You can still profit from doing the opposite, you know. But I don't know. I don't know. It's a difficult.
No,
subject,
people are hungry for a different image.
I think so. I think so as well. I think that there is something where people would like to see something different, because I've said it before. Most of us we ain't out here trying to be dysfunctional, man. We're not doing that. You know, we're just not. We're not out here trying to, like, in our heart of hearts, that's not what most black people want for themselves. It's just we're so used to being conditioned to think that it's okay and that's what you should do. And the people who might tell us that we shouldn't do it, maybe they're not coming from, like I said earlier, maybe they're the wrong messenger to some people, you know? And that's maybe where the issue comes in, because they'll be saying the right things, but people look at them like, but who are you? You came from a middle-class family. That shouldn't matter as much as it does, but it does matter to people. You get what I'm saying? Now, if you put a guy who came from below the poverty line, like myself, and I'm saying it to you, you can't tell me nothing, because you can't say to me, well, you grew up with a silver spoon, so you don't understand. Because what people are going to want to do is find any reason to cancel out your logic, to negate what you're saying. But the closer you are to their experience, the harder it becomes for them to do that. And it's also inspiring for a lot of people, because the closer you are to the experience, it also inspires people. Like, okay, maybe I can do it as well then. You get what I'm saying? And so I just think that, yeah, obviously I've said a lot, but whatever. You know, I'm sure the point gets across. I just think that we should focus on those types of things. But I'm not going to pressure people to feel like they have to commit to the community and say, because at the end of the day, I think for the most part, it's a wrap. But for whatever reason, maybe I'm hoping against hope, but I'm still going to try and do something to help, you know.
Indeed. Myth, you hit the nail again. You're always coming in with fire as it goes on, man. But yeah, thanks for coming in again. I'll see you on Clubhouse. No. I'm taking it easy with that too. Trust me.
You may not, because that thing is a madness. It's very interesting people.
It's chaotic.
I will say it is very interesting. Characters on there. There's some types of characters on there you won't really see here on, like, in this kind of section on YouTube. So it definitely leads to some different voices, like what we had over the weekend. I'm not going to say anything about, but you know, just some of the people who were in your room. Very interesting. They're very different. yeah, I
But we
appreciate
definitely
you.
will carry on conversation on here. But yeah, Myth Twist, thank you once again. See you in a bit. So guys, you tuned into a very good segment, a very good discussion. Myth Twist, Lady A, we had Bro from Brom come in today, and yeah, anyone else would like to bring an input, I'll try and do another live stream soon. We can speak on other stuff too. Hey, it seems as if, some people might have disagreements on other things. I would love to have that discussion. Yeah. So I'm going to close off with 2 videos that I played in the beginning, and then I'll just join you guys in the chat. We'll see what's going on. Yes, Vincent, it has been lit. Definitely, everyone's input has always been fire. I'm glad to always do this. But see you in a bit. I'm gonna post this video and tune in again. Hang out with you in the chat.
I should have solved the integration problems, etc.
For Black people in particular, do you think that we can truly make change as things are right now?
Well, it starts in the home. If the father's not in the home, the boy will find the father in the streets. Yeah, I saw it in my generation and every generation before me and everyone since. It starts in the home.
It was something I read where you talked about your people from Mount Vernon saying that, like they've done like 40 years in the penitentiary together.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, and, incarceration rates in America has been a problem, especially as opposed to minorities. And Roman delves into the issues around the legal system. Do you think we've made any headway in the
I
legal
think it's more important to make headway in our own house. By the time the system comes into play, the damage is done. They're not locking up 7-year-olds.
Yeah.
I was in Chicago a couple of 3-4 weeks ago, and we saw these little kids on bikes with masks on the side of their head, like 5 or 6 of them. And the driver said, yeah, they're little yummies. I said, who? He said, little yummies. Look up, Google Lil Yummy. Lil Yummy was an 11-year-old murderer.
Wow.
And you look at his picture, you'll see the headshot of him, and he's like this. And he got murdered at 11 by a 14-year-old.
Wow.
Who's doing life now, and a 16-year-old.
That makes no sense.
You blame the system? Where was his father?
Yeah.
It starts in the house. It starts in the home. And yeah, well, my father got locked up. Well, where was his father?
Marriage. Again, the Thomas Sowell reader. Despite attempts to equate married couples with people who are living together as domestic partners, married couples, genuinely married couples, not domestic partners, are in fact better off by almost any standard you can think of. Close quote.
Income. People who are married have higher incomes. Domestic violence, the rate of domestic violence in marriage is a fraction of what it is among people who are simply living together. The abuse of children in married couples, families, is a fraction of what the abuse of children is among people who are simply living together. So if you put it to an empirical test, it's just very clear that marriage makes a difference. Among blacks, black married couples have had a poverty rate in single digits every year since 1994.
So to the cry, what is to be done? Tom Sowell answers.
It's been done.
Get an education, get married, have kids after you get married. That's sort of the answer, right?
Well, yes, and the things that work for other people tend to work pretty generally.
All right. Tom Sowell answers.
It's been done.
Get an education, get married, have kids after you get married. That's sort of the answer, right?
So why did he need a black director? Could a white director not have?
It's not color. It's culture.
Explain the difference, because I think we're
Steven
in a space
Spielberg
right
did Schindler's List.
Mm-hmm.
Martin Scorsese did Goodfellas, right? Steven Spielberg could direct Goodfellas. Martin Scorsese probably could have done a good job with Schindler's List, but there are cultural differences.
Are you saying that in a culturally pluralistic society such as America, are you saying that the variable in success or lack of success is the culture of the particular group?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I'm saying it not only for the United States, but in terms of the studies of various other countries around the world, the same thing seems to be true. you not only find the same group having the same characteristics in country after the country. That is, the Germans produced the first pianos in Australia. They created the piano industry in the United States. They built the first pianos in England. They built the first pianos in Russia. You look at the Chinese, what they major in Malaysia in college is what they major in the United States in college.
Namely science and chemistry.
Science and technology, heavily. And this follows the group around the world. So the notion that the group is a creature of society, that society has shaped the group, just will not.
Trying to remember now, I believe it was in the mid-70s when substandard English began to become began to become viewed as a discipline of its own within linguistic studies and so forth. And for all I know, it was all perfectly legitimate that certain speech patterns would be traced back to various regions in Africa and so forth. And this is a language of its own. It has its own validity. But the argument, your argument would be, I don't really care what its validity is. It's holding people back. It's preventing them from participating in the wider society. Is that right?
Absolutely. And also, none of these things went back to Africa.
Oh, is that so?
No. You can, yes, they did not go back to Africa. If you look at the piece, for example, using the word axe for ask and stuff like that, all of that goes back to the South. And it goes back to the parts of Britain from which white Southerners came. So if you trace the calling hog entrails chitlins, that was in a certain section of Britain, the section from which whites moved into the South, and they were known as rednecks and crackers in Britain in centuries past before they ever set foot in the South. So the whole thing is as phony as the $3 bill.
In Intellectuals and Race, you cite an observation by the intelligence expert, IQ scientist James Flynn, that just stopped me cold. After the Second World War, you've got large numbers of American troops remaining in Germany. For that matter, there's still several tens of thousands there today. And both black and white American soldiers had children with German women. And Flynn discovered that those children growing up in Germany showed no IQ differences at all. The black kids and the white kids, the same. Professor Flynn concluded that the reason was that the offspring of black soldiers in Germany grew up in a nation with no black subculture, close quote. Which means what? Which means they experienced exactly the same expectations. Is this
No, the expectations are external. The culture in which they grew up was not the culture in which black kids grew up in America today.
So they had...
There's no gangster rap that was pervasively available in Germany.
So here's what I'm getting. There is something about black subculture in America today that holds African Americans themselves back?
Yes, because that very same subculture held whites in the South back as well. That in the time, this mental testing in the First World War turned up, among other things, the fact that whites from various 4 or 5 southern states scored lower on the mental test than blacks from 4 or 5 northern states. And so it really was a question of the subculture that was there, which was a handicap to both.
Well, I see the Duke in the chat. What's up?
And the G.
The Duke.
Yeah, I understand that there's some where the white women at, like duking it, but a lot.
It's the Duke in the flesh. Showing my face now. Let's see how this goes. I follow the facts first and foremost. Tell that to your mother, man. We don't play around on this panel.
Exactly what I've been waiting for. This is exactly, I don't mean to sound like Cat Williams, but this is exactly what I've been waiting for.